Hey guys, tonight we're going to listen for the oldest sound in the world. Not the sound of a storm or a volcano, but the very first sound our ancestors ever made on purpose, just to hear it. We are going on a hunt for the first song. Imagine, we are 3 million years in the past, standing on the dry, open savanna of East Africa. The sun is a relentless hammer, the air thick with the smell of dust and distant rain. Before you lies a world that is both utterly alien and strangely familiar, the cradle of humanity itself. But it's a cradle that is, for now, silent in a very particular way. In that shimmering heat, a small family group of Australopithecus afarensis moves through the tall grass. They are small, covered in hair, walking upright, but with an ape-like gait. From this tiny group, from this unassuming ancestor, the long, winding path to us begins. Over millions of years, their descendants will learn to master fire, to craft complex tools, to build cities, and to walk on the moon. They will learn to speak, to write poetry, and to fill the air with symphonies. But how did that journey begin? When did a simple grunt become a note? When did the rhythm of walking become a deliberate beat? And what did that very first intentional music actually sound like? Thanks to a convergence of fossil discoveries, genetic research, and modern neuroscience, we can now travel back and listen for the echoes of that first performance. Frankly, if you tried to play your favorite song for one of these ancestors, they'd probably just try to eat your phone. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are one of them. Your world is not silent. It's a rich tapestry of functional, vital sound. You hear the constant whispering rustle of wind through the savanna grass, a sound that can hide the approach of a predator. You hear the sharp, frantic buzz of insects, the distant rumble of thunder that promises life-giving water, the crack of a dry branch underfoot. At night, you hear the terrifying roar of a saber-toothed cat, a sound that freezes the blood and sends your small clan scrambling for the safety of the trees. Every sound has a direct, immediate meaning. Threat, opportunity, weather, food. This is a soundscape of reaction, a world of listening for what is, not for what could be. The idea of making a sound for its own sake, for pleasure, for communication beyond a simple warning hoot, does not exist. It is a cognitive capacity that has not yet been born. Your mind, the mind of this Australopithecus, is a magnificent tool for survival, honed by millions of years of evolution. It is occupied with the profound and pressing realities of the now. Where is the nearest fruit-bearing tree? Is that shape in the distance a predator or a rock? How can I keep my infant safe? Your brain is a map of the immediate world, a calculator of risk and reward. But it lacks a crucial layer of abstraction. There is no symbolic thought. A rock is a rock. It is not yet a potential tool, let alone a potential drum. The notion of art, of creating something that represents something else, is a universe away. Paleoanthropologists still argue about the inner world of these ancestors, whether their emotional lives were as complex as ours, just without an outlet for expression, or if that complexity only arose once the tools for expression, like language and music, became available. The biological hardware for music is still under construction. Your vocal tract is the primary issue. Your larynx, the voice box, sits high in your throat, much like a modern chimpanzee's. This is efficient for breathing and swallowing, and it significantly reduces the risk of choking. But it severely limits the range of sounds you can produce. The complex vowel sounds that are the building blocks of both speech and singing are, for you, a physical impossibility. Your brain, too, is missing key connections. The auditory cortex, which processes sound, and the frontal lobe, which handles planning and abstract thought, do not yet have the dense, high-speed network required to analyze, remember, and reproduce a melody. You can hear the pitch of a bird's call, but you cannot consciously mimic it or arrange it into a new pattern. Even your hearing, while sharp, is tuned for a different world. Scientific analysis of fossilized hominin ear bones suggests that Australopithecus hearing was most sensitive, in a frequency range perfect for picking up the short-range vocal calls of the troop in an open savanna environment, a crucial survival trait. This, of course, would become a crucial pre-adaptation for eventually understanding the nuances of speech. But for now, it's all about safety. There is no room in this world of pure survival for an art form that requires surplus time, abstract thought, and a finely tuned anatomy. Yet the potential is there, dormant. The slow, grinding pressure of natural selection is already subtly reshaping the throat, rewiring the brain, and sharpening the ear. The stage is being set, the orchestra pit is being dug, but the players are still evolving. The first note is millions of years away, waiting for a mind capable of conceiving it and a voice capable of singing it. That raw, reactive soundscape is all your world is, for now. But deep inside your skull, a piece of biological architecture of almost unbelievable elegance is taking shape. It's a machine for capturing the whispers of the wind and the warnings of the world, and it's being slowly, meticulously tuned for a future you can't possibly imagine. Let's zoom in, past your outer ear, and into the intricate cavernous space of your middle and inner ear. Here lies one of evolution's most remarkable stories. You, like all mammals, possess 3 tiny, intricate bones: the malleus, incus, and stapes, or the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. They form a delicate chain that transmits vibrations from your eardrum to the fluid-filled cochlea. What's astonishing, and a beautiful piece of quirky evolutionary trivia, is where they came from. These bones didn't just appear out of nowhere. They are repurposed jawbones. Your very distant reptile-like ancestors, the synapsids who roamed the earth long before the dinosaurs, had a mouthful of bones in their lower jaw. As mammals evolved, the jaw simplified into a single strong bone on each side. The now redundant bones at the back of the jaw didn't just disappear. Evolution, the ultimate tinkerer, found a new use for them. They slowly migrated, shrank, and reshaped themselves into the sophisticated levers of your middle ear, becoming exquisitely sensitive amplifiers for airborne sound. It's a mainstream historical fact of our own biology that the very mechanism allowing you to hear a whisper once helped an ancient creature chew its food. This isn't just speculation, it's a story told in stone. The scientific evidence comes from the fossil record itself. Paleoanthropologists use high-resolution CT scanners to peer inside the petrified skulls of your ancestors. By creating detailed 3D models of the inner ear canals and the middle ear structure of fossils like Australopithecus africanus and Paranthropus robustus, they can run simulations to determine what their hearing was actually like. The results are fascinating. The studies show that their hearing was, in many ways, similar to that of a modern chimpanzee, well suited for a forest environment. But there was a key difference. Your ancestors had a distinct, enhanced sensitivity in a higher frequency range, specifically between 1.5 and 3.5 kilohertz. This is a bandwidth that, in modern humans, is absolutely crucial for processing the sounds of articulate speech. This discovery is the heart of a major scholarly discussion. Anthropologists still argue whether this enhanced frequency sensitivity was an adaptation for hearing vocal calls in an open savanna environment, or a pre-adaptation that would later be co-opted for language. One side suggests that on the wide-open plains, you needed to hear the subtle, higher-pitched calls of your clan over the low-frequency rustle of the wind and grass. It was a simple, practical adaptation for your current environment. The other side argues that this was a happy accident, a neurological and anatomical trait that just happened to be perfect for the later development of complex language. It was an ear waiting for a voice to speak to it. Whichever is true, the result is the same. Your hearing is becoming specialized. You are beginning to hear the world in a way your more ape-like ancestors never could. But even the most perfect microphone is useless without something to process its signal. The ear is only half the story. The real magic is happening in your brain. As your ear refines its ability to pick up sound, your brain is evolving in lockstep to make sense of it. Your primary auditory cortex, the region of the brain that first receives raw sound information, is slowly expanding. More importantly, it's building denser, faster connections to other, more ancient parts of your brain. The most significant of these new connections is to the limbic system, particularly a little almond-shaped structure called the amygdala, the seat of your emotions. This is a critical development. It means that sound is no longer just data. It's not just loud roar equals danger, or rustling grass equals potential snake. Sound is starting to acquire an emotional color. A certain type of call from a mate can now trigger a feeling of comfort that is distinct from simple recognition. The cry of an infant can spark a surge of anxiety that is more than just a programmed response. The world of sound is beginning to be painted with the rich, vibrant palette of feeling. This crucial link, this pathway between what you hear and how you feel, is the neurological foundation upon which all music will eventually be built. It is the reason why a simple melody will one day have the power to make your distant descendants weep with joy or tremble with sorrow. The architecture is not yet complete, but the blueprints are becoming clear. An ear tuned for speech, and a brain wired to feel the sounds it hears. Your ears are now primed, and your brain is wired to connect sound with feeling. But for music to truly begin, you need more than a good receiver. You need a transmitter. You need an instrument capable of producing a range of sounds far more complex than the hoots and grunts of your Australopithecus ancestors. That instrument is your own throat, and it is undergoing a profound and dangerous transformation. The pivotal change, the anatomical innovation that will unlock the potential for both language and song, is the descent of your larynx. In your ancestor and in modern apes, the larynx, your voice box, sits high up in the throat. This is a very sensible arrangement. It allows them to breathe and swallow at the same time, a handy trick that a human baby can also perform for the first few months of its life. But as a human child grows, its larynx descends, creating a large open chamber at the back of the throat, called the pharynx. This anatomical shift is a classic evolutionary trade-off. It comes with a terrible new risk, a quirky and frankly inconvenient tidbit about our species. The new arrangement makes it incredibly easy for us to choke on our food, something that rarely, if ever, happens to a chimpanzee. Food can miss the esophagus and lodge in the trachea, a design flaw that seems almost comically inept. So why would evolution make such a seemingly dangerous bargain? The payoff had to be enormous, and it was. This new expanded pharynx acts as a resonating chamber, like the body of a violin. It gives your voice the space it needs to create the rich, distinct vowel sounds, the ah and ooh sounds that are the fundamental building blocks of all human languages and all forms of singing. Without that descended larynx, your vocalizations would be a muffled, indistinct collection of consonant-like grunts. With it, the full, colorful spectrum of the human voice becomes possible. You can now not only shout a warning, but also vary the acoustic quality of that warning, embedding it with nuances of urgency and emotion that a simple grunt could never convey. The mainstream fact here is that this anatomical feature is unique to humans among primates, and is the single most important physical adaptation for speech. Of course, a descended larynx is useless without the fine muscular control to operate it. Anchoring this entire new vocal system is one of the most unique bones in your body, the hyoid. It's a small U-shaped bone located in your neck, and it's the only bone in the human body that doesn't directly articulate with any other bone. It just floats, suspended in a complex web of muscles and ligaments that connect to your tongue, your jaw, and your larynx. It acts as a crucial anchor point, allowing for the precise, rapid movements of the tongue and throat required for complex vocalization. The scientific evidence for the antiquity of this trait comes from remarkable fossil finds. Archaeologists have discovered hyoid bones from Neanderthals, dating back 60,000 years, and from an even earlier ancestor, Homo heidelbergensis, over 500,000 years ago. And they look almost identical to yours. This tells us that the basic anatomical machinery for a modern human-like voice has been in place for a very, very long time. This physical evolution is mirrored by a genetic one. Deep in your DNA, a gene known as FOXP2 is acquiring mutations that are critical for speech. Often nicknamed the language gene, XP2 doesn't create language itself, but it appears to be vital for the fine motor control and coordination of the laryngeal and oral muscles. People with a mutated version of this gene today have severe difficulties with speech and grammar. The modern human variant of FOXP2 was present in both Neanderthals and Denisovans, suggesting that our shared ancestor had already evolved this crucial piece of the neurological puzzle. You are now embodying a new kind of hominin, perhaps a Homo erectus or heidelbergensis. You stand taller, your brain is larger, and your throat is capable of new magic. You are beginning to explore the potential of your new voice. The raw material of music is finally here. A warning call can now be a sharp, piercing cry. A sound of comfort to an infant can be a low, resonant hum. A cry of excitement at finding food can be a rising, melodic whoop. You can't speak or sing in the way your distant descendants will, but the emotional range of your vocal toolkit has expanded dramatically. You are no longer just reacting to the world. You are beginning to vocalize your experience of it. A new world of sound, feeling, and expression is dawning, born from a dangerous compromise deep within your own throat. Your voice is now a nascent instrument, capable of painting the air with the raw colors of emotion. But even before that voice could shape itself into the first melody, a deeper, more primal force of music was already stirring within you. It was not something you had to invent or discover in the external world. It was a rhythm you had carried within you from birth. It is the steady, reassuring thump-thump of your own heart in your chest. It's the gentle, tidal cadence of your breathing, the in and out that has marked every moment of your existence. It is the metronomic beat of your own 2 feet carrying you across the savanna, a rhythm of survival that has been ingrained over 1,000,000 years of walking upright. This is the rhythmic imperative, the biological pulse that underpins all life. It's not music yet, but it's the blueprint. It's the silent, internal metronome against which all future music will be measured. For millennia, this rhythm has been an unconscious part of your being. But now, with a larger brain capable of making new connections, you begin to notice it. You begin to play with it. Sitting by the fire one evening, the hunt finished and your belly full, your mind is momentarily quiet. You slap your thigh to kill a biting insect. The sound is a dull, satisfying thwack. You do it again, just to hear the sound. Your other hand joins in. Thwack, thwack. Then you bring your palms together in a sharp, loud clap. The sound is clean, precise, and entirely under your control. This is a revelation. You are not just reacting to the sound of the world, you are creating it. You strike your own chest, a deep, resonant boom that you feel as much as you hear. You stand up and bring your foot down hard on the packed earth, a solid, ground-shaking thud. Hand, chest, foot. Each one is a different drum, a different voice in your newfound personal orchestra. You are discovering that your own body is the first and most accessible instrument you will ever own. This urge to translate an internal or external rhythm into physical motion is not just a passing whim, it's a fundamental piece of your neurobiology. The scientific evidence for this is clear in the brain of your modern descendants. Modern neuroscience shows that the brain's auditory cortex, which processes sound, has incredibly dense and fast connections to the motor cortex, which controls movement. When your brain hears a strong, predictable beat, it doesn't just register it as information. It sends a signal directly to your motor system that says, "Join in." It's an involuntary impulse to synchronize. This is the science behind why you instinctively tap your foot to a beat. Why a marching band makes you want to walk in step, and why it feels so viscerally good to move in time with a rhythm. Your brain is hardwired for entrainment. It wants to latch onto a beat and become part of it. This individual discovery quickly becomes a communal one. One evening, you begin to clap a simple, steady rhythm. A clan member sitting across the fire hears you, and after a moment joins in. Another starts slapping their thighs to the same beat. Soon, a dozen of you are moving together, a unified percussive engine. The air, once filled with the crackle of fire and the chirp of crickets, is now dominated by a powerful, intentional, human-made beat. This is the birth of what anthropologist William McNeill called muscular bonding. Moving and making sound together in unison is one of the most powerful social glues our species has ever discovered. It dissolves the boundaries between individuals, synchronizing not just your movements, but your very emotions. Fear, excitement, joy, whatever the dominant feeling is, it becomes amplified and shared, creating a temporary superorganism out of a collection of individuals. Scholars still debate whether this rhythmic impulse was primarily a tool for social cohesion, or if it had more practical origins in coordinating group work. But around the fire, the distinction doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling of belonging, of shared power and purpose. As the group rhythm continues, something even stranger and more profound begins to happen inside you. This is the quirky and fascinating phenomenon of physiological entrainment. The steady external beat created by the group starts to influence your internal biological rhythms. Your own heart rate, which might have been erratic, begins to slow down and synchronize with the collective pulse. Your breathing deepens, falling into the same cadence as the person next to you. In a very real biological sense, you are all getting on the same wavelength. You are no longer just a group of individuals sitting near each other. You are a synchronized unit, bound together by a shared, living rhythm. This is the first drum circle, played on the oldest of all instruments, the human body itself, and its music is the powerful, invisible force of community being forged in real time. The powerful body-shaking rhythm of the group has forged you into a single, cohesive unit. But as the fire dies down and the clan settles into the quiet of the night, another, more ancient and intimate music emerges. It's not the thunder of the collective, but the whisper of the pair. You are holding your infant, who is restless and whimpering. Without thinking, you begin to make sounds. They are not words. They are a series of soft, cooing noises, your voice rising and falling in a gentle, exaggerated wave. Your pitch is higher than normal, the tempo slow and rocking. You repeat simple, melodic phrases over and over. Ooh, ah, eh. This is the universal language of care, a phenomenon so widespread that linguists have a name for it: infant-directed speech, or more simply, motherese. It's a mainstream fact that across every culture ever studied, from the Amazon rainforest to the Arctic tundra, adults instinctively change their speech patterns when talking to babies in this precise, musical way. This isn't just sentimental baby talk. You are using a sophisticated and evolutionarily ancient neurological tool. Its purpose is multifaceted and profound. The high pitch and slow, sweeping melodic contours are perfectly tuned to capture an infant's developing brain's attention. The scientific evidence from modern developmental psychology is clear. Babies pay far more attention to motherese than to regular adult-directed speech. It actively helps them regulate their own emotions. The gentle, predictable rhythm of your voice can lower their heart rate, reduce stress hormones like cortisol, and lull them into a state of calm. More than just soothing, you are giving your child its very first lesson in language. By exaggerating the vowel sounds and the musical prosody, the natural up and down melody of speech, you are providing a simplified, high-contrast sonic map of the language they will one day speak. They are learning the shape and feel of their mother tongue long before they can comprehend a single word. This deep connection between melody and emotion led Charles Darwin to propose what was, at the time, a radical and still rather quirky idea about the origins of all music. He suggested that music didn't begin with work or ritual, but with courtship. He looked at the animal kingdom, at the elaborate songs and dances of birds, and proposed that our distant ancestors, long before they had language, used rhythm and melody as a primary tool of sexual selection. You would have used your voice not to exchange information, but to charm, to woo, to display your fitness to a potential mate. In this view, the first song was a love song, a vocal display meant to signal health, creativity, and good genes, much like a peacock displays its tail. For Darwin, the raw passions, love, jealousy, triumph, were the engine that drove the evolution of our musical abilities. Darwin's theory feeds into a larger and more central academic question. Researchers still argue whether music and language evolved from a common ancestor, this musy language phase, or if they developed along separate but parallel evolutionary tracks, constantly influencing one another. The musa-language hypothesis suggests that at some point deep in our past, our vocalizations were a hybrid of both. A single utterance would have contained both specific information, like language, and a rich, emotional, melodic contour, like music. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this unified system may have split. One branch specialized in the efficient transfer of information, becoming language. The other branch specialized in conveying emotion and strengthening social bonds, becoming music. If this theory is true, then the motherese you are humming to your child is a kind of living fossil, a glimpse back at that ancient, holistic form of communication, where meaning and melody were one and the same. You only have to look to the wider natural world to see that this essence of sound, emotion, and social information is not unique to us. You can hear it in the complex, haunting songs of the humpback whale, great symphonies that echo across entire oceans, communicating identity and fitness. You can see it in the practiced, intricate melodies of a songbird, whose calls are not just innate, but must be learned and perfected to attract a mate and defend a territory. These creatures are masters of a kind of natural music, a functional, beautiful sound that underpins their entire social existence. The soft, melodic sounds you are making to your child are not a frivolous invention. They are your connection to this deep, biological history, a proto-melody that serves the most fundamental purposes of all, to comfort your young, to strengthen your bonds, and to lay the very first paving stones on the long road to both language and song. The soft, melodic humming of motherese has settled the camp for the night, but as dawn breaks, a different kind of soundscape arises with the sun. This is the sound of survival, the unintentional orchestra of daily life. You are a tool maker now, perhaps a member of the ambitious and spreading species Homo erectus. You sit on the ground, a large piece of flint held firmly in one hand and a heavy, smooth hammerstone in the other. Your task is to create a hand axe, the Swiss Army knife of the Paleolithic world. At first, your strikes are clumsy, exploratory. A sharp, loud crack sends a large, useless chunk flying. You adjust your grip. The next strike is more controlled, a precise chink that shears off a perfect, sharp flake. As you work, your movements, honed by years of practice, fall into a pattern. Chink, chink, tap, chink. A cadence emerges, a rhythm born not of artistic intent, but of pure, functional necessity. The most skilled toolmaker in your clan is not just the most precise, they are the most rhythmic. Their movements a fluid, percussive dance of stone on stone. Once you start listening for it, you realize this accidental music is everywhere. Over by the grinding stones, 2 women are processing acacia seeds, their bodies rocking back and forth in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. It's the sound of stone on stone again, but different. A constant, abrasive scrape hiss that speaks of sustenance and patience. Further out, a group is butchering a large animal, the rhythmic thwack, whack of stone choppers against bone providing a stark, percussive beat. Even the quieter tasks have their own music. The soft, swishing rustle of someone weaving a basket from river reeds, the steady scrape, scrape, scrape of a hide being prepared for clothing. This is the symphony of the everyday, a world of found sound where every tool is an instrument and every task is a composition. There is no audience and no applause, because this music is simply the sound of your world turning, the sound of your clan staying alive. It is from this foundation of rhythmic work that one of the most practical and compelling theories for music's origin arises: the work song hypothesis. The theory proposes that music, or at least rhythmic chanting, evolved for the brutally practical purpose of coordinating group labor. Imagine a task that is impossible for one person alone. A massive log needs to be moved to reinforce the camp wall, or the carcass of a giant bison needs to be dragged back from the kill site. How do you get 10 individuals to pull with maximum force at the exact same instant? You give them a beat. A leader begins a simple rhythmic grunt. Heave-ho! Heave-to! The group joins in, and suddenly 10 disparate efforts become one focused, synchronized pulse of power. This is a mainstream fact of human history, an idea whose truth is evident in the sea shanties sailors used to haul ropes and raise anchors, and the field hollers that set the pace for harvesting crops, traditions that have survived into the modern era as a testament to this deep connection between rhythm and labor. The almost magical effect this has, a quirky tidbit of our own psychology, is that it doesn't just coordinate the work, it makes the work feel easier. A synchronized chant distracts from the pain and monotony of the task, focusing the brain on the shared rhythm rather than on aching muscles. Scientific evidence from modern ergonomic and psychological studies confirms this ancient wisdom. When people perform repetitive physical tasks while listening to a steady beat, their endurance increases, their movements become more efficient, and they report a lower level of perceived exertion. Your ancestors didn't need a laboratory to discover this. They just knew that a song made a heavy load feel lighter. But this leads to a classic chicken and egg problem. While the evidence for music's role in coordinating labor is strong, anthropologists still debate whether this was a primary origin of music or a later application of rhythmic skills that were first developed for social ritual. Did your clan first learn to clap and stomp in unison around the fire to feel closer together, and then realize that same skill could be used to move a big rock? Or did the practical need for a coordinated heave-ho come first, with the fun stuff like dancing and celebration coming later? For now, the two are deeply intertwined. The soundscape of your life is a percussive one. It's the sharp clack of the flint knapper's workshop, the rhythmic grunts of the hauling party, the call and response shouts that keep everyone in time. This is not a performance. This is not art for art's sake. It is sound with a purpose, a sonic engine that drives the machinery of your small society. It is the moment that rhythm ceases to be an accident and becomes a tool. The world of work has provided you with a powerful, if unintentional, rhythm. The chink of the flint napper and the scrape hiss of the grinding stone have become the background music of your life. But a crucial cognitive leap is about to happen. It's the leap from creating sound as a byproduct of a task to creating sound for its own sake, using the world around you as your instrument. It starts simply. You remember the deep, satisfying boom you could create by striking your own chest. One day, you pass a large fallen tree, its trunk hollowed out by termites and time. An impulse strikes you. Instead of hitting yourself, you pick up a heavy branch and strike the log. The sound is a revelation. It's not the sharp crack of stone on stone, nor the fleshy thud of your own body. It's a deep, resonant boom that seems to shake the very air, a sound far larger and more powerful than any you could make on your own. You hit it again. The sound travels, echoing through the trees. You've just discovered the fundamental principle of percussion, a resonating chamber. The world has just become your drum. Your curiosity is sparked. If a hollow log can make such a sound, what else can? You begin to explore your environment not just for what is edible or dangerous, but for what is sonorous. You start tapping on things, rocks, trees, stretches of dried animal hide. Most produce a dull, uninteresting thud, but occasionally you find something special. You discover a cluster of boulders, and as you strike each one with a smaller stone, you realize they sing with different voices. One has a high, clear ping, another a dull, low clunk. You've stumbled upon a natural xylophone, an instrument we now call a lithophone, or rock gong. This is not just speculation. It is a mainstream historical fact that our ancestors all over the world discovered and utilized these sounding stones. At sites in Kupagalale in South India and on Mfangano Island in Kenya's Lake Victoria, archaeologists have found boulders with distinct cup-shaped marks on them, clear scientific evidence of being repeatedly and deliberately struck over long periods of time. This discovery, however, highlights the immense difficulty of finding proof for the first music. A wooden drumstick used to beat a hollow log rots away to nothing in a handful of seasons. A stretched hide drum disappears without a trace. These organic instruments, which were likely the most common, are lost to the great silence of deep time. We are left with the tantalizing but often ambiguous clues left in stone. Even with the distinct percussion marks on the lithophones, archaeologists still debate whether these marked stones were true musical instruments used in rituals or for entertainment, or if they were simply sonorous anvils used for making stone tools, whose ringing properties were a purely coincidental secondary feature. We can see that they were hit, but the why remains a profound mystery. Let's step into a moment of pure possibility. You and your small band, seeking shelter from a storm, move into the deep, echoing darkness of a limestone cave. As you feel your way through, a hanging finger of rock gets in your way, and you push it aside. It swings and taps against another, producing a clear melodic chime that hangs in the damp air, impossibly pure. You have discovered a natural cave organ. You tap it again, then another one next to it, which produces a lower, more resonant tone. Soon, the whole group is exploring, tapping the stalactites and stalagmites, filling the cave with a ghostly, subterranean music. You find a chamber where the acoustics are particularly strange, where a single clap echoes a dozen times. This space is special. It's a sonic playground, a natural cathedral of sound. It is in spaces like this, perhaps, that the line between accidental discovery and intentional ritual first began to blur. This idea of a field of musical rocks might seem like a fantasy, but it's a living reality. As a quirky tidbit, you can visit a place today called Ringing Rocks Park in Pennsylvania. It's a vast field of boulders, and when you strike them with a hammer, they ring with a surprising and beautiful metallic chime. No one is entirely sure why these specific rocks have this property, but to walk through that field, tapping the stones and creating a spontaneous, clanging melody, is to have a direct, tangible experience of what your ancestors must have felt. It's that moment of pure wonder, the discovery that the hard, silent, and indifferent stone of the world can, if you just strike it in the right way, be made to sing. The percussive world of booming logs and ringing stones has given you a powerful earthly beat. But another kind of music is waiting to be discovered, not in the solid earth beneath your feet, but in the empty air you breathe. The hunt has been successful, and you are preparing the carcass of a massive griffin vulture, a creature with a wingspan wider than you are tall. As you strip the meat and sinew, you are left with the long, elegant bones of the wing. They are remarkably light, yet strong, and they are hollow. You snap one of the smaller bones in two, and later, as you sit by the fire, you idly put the broken tube to your lips. The wind of your breath passing over the sharp edge creates a faint, airy hiss. Intrigued, you angle it differently, blowing across the top opening as you might blow across a gourd to cool the water inside. Suddenly, a sound emerges. It's unlike anything you have made before. It is not a bang, a clap, or a scrape. It is a single, pure, sustained note. A clear, haunting whistle that seems to hang in the smoky air of the cave. This sound is a ghost. It has no impact, no solid form. It is made of nothing but your own breath given shape and voice by a hollow bone. You are captivated. You experiment, discovering that by changing the pressure of your breath, you can make the note louder or softer. By covering the far end with your palm, you can change the pitch, making it deeper. This is a profound moment of understanding. You have discovered a new way to interact with the world, a way to sculpt the air itself into music. The next logical step, though it may take you weeks, months, or even a generation to perfect, is revolutionary. If covering the end of the tube changes the note, what would happen if you made a new opening somewhere in the middle? You take a sharp, pointed piece of flint, and with painstaking care, you begin to grind and drill into the side of the bone. It is a delicate, deliberate act that requires immense patience, fine motor control, and a capacity for abstract, forward thinking. If I do this, then that will happen. Finally, you break through. You blow again, covering your new hole with a fingertip, and then lifting it. A new note is born. You have just created the world's first flute. This isn't a hypothetical story. We have found the instruments themselves. In the caves of the Swabian Jura in southern Germany, specifically in a cave called Hohle Fels, archaeologists have unearthed some of the most breathtaking artifacts in human history. They are flutes, exquisitely crafted, dating back a staggering 40,000 years. This is a mainstream historical fact that pushes the timeline for music far back into the Ice Age. One of them is made from the wing bone of a griffin vulture, just like the one in your hands. It has 5 precisely carved finger holes and a V-shaped notch at one end to serve as the mouthpiece. Another is fashioned from the tusk of a mammoth, a far more challenging material. This is the quirky tidbit. To make a flute from solid ivory, its creator had to split the tusk lengthwise, meticulously hollow out both halves, carve the finger holes, and then glue the two pieces back together with a resin so perfectly that the seal is airtight. This wasn't a casual toy. It was a masterpiece of engineering, a treasured object that must have taken hundreds of hours to create. The scientific evidence confirming these are instruments is overwhelming. Under powerful microscopes, researchers can see the clear striations and V-shaped cuts around the finger holes, proving they were carved by human tools and not, as some skeptics initially proposed, the result of puncture marks from a carnivore's teeth. The spacing of the holes is deliberate, not random. To go a step further, scientists have created exact replicas of these flutes using the same materials and Stone Age techniques. And when they play them, we can hear the sound of the Ice Age for the first time. They produce a clear, high-pitched, almost bird-like scale. Scholars and musicians still debate the exact scales and tuning systems used, but the notes are undeniably musical, and the instruments are perfectly functional. Now, place yourself back in that Ice Age cave, 40,000 years ago. Outside, a vast frozen steppe stretches to the horizon, a world of mammoths, woolly rhinos, and immense glaciers. The nights are long and brutally cold, but inside, in the flickering orange light of the fire, one of your clan members raises a small bone flute to their lips. The clear high notes cut through the crackle of the flames, echoing off the low rock ceiling where the shadows of your people dance. What is this music for? Is it simple entertainment? A way to combat the crushing boredom and fear of the long, dark winter? Is it a tool for a shaman? A way to mimic the calls of birds or the voices of spirits? A soundtrack for a sacred ritual? Or is it telling a story? A melodic narrative of a great hunt or a creation myth? Its meaning understood by all who listen. We can never know for sure. But what we do know is that this small, fragile instrument represents a monumental leap in human consciousness. It is the sound of pure abstraction, of art for art's sake, a ghostly whisper from a lost world that tells us, across 400 centuries, that we were not so different after all. The pure, ghostly sound of the bone flute has opened up a new dimension of music, a melody that floats on air. But your world is still a deeply physical, tactile place. Music for you is not just something to be heard. It's something to be felt. And so your sonic explorations turn back to the solid world, to the things you can hold in your hand, things that don't need your breath to sing, but only need to be shaken, struck, or scraped. You are about to discover the vast and versatile family of instruments known as idiophones, objects that create sound through the vibration of their own substance, without the need for a stretched skin or a string. Your first discovery is, as always, an accident. You are using the serrated jawbone of a deer to scrape sinew from a hide. As you drag a piece of flint along the row of teeth, you notice the sound it creates. A harsh, rhythmic zzzt. It's a compelling, almost insect-like sound. You pick up a stick and run it along the teeth. Faster this time. The sound becomes a high-pitched chattering, a dry, buzzing rhythm that cuts through the air. You've created a scraper. This simple act of scraping a notched object for its sound is one of the most ancient musical ideas we can find in the archaeological record. At numerous Paleolithic sites, from Europe to Africa, archaeologists have found bones and antlers with a series of parallel, incised notches carved into them. The scientific evidence is clear. These marks are not the random scratches of a butchery tool. They are deliberate, evenly spaced, and show signs of wear, as if a stick or another bone had been repeatedly rubbed across them. We call these artifacts rasps or scrapers, but their true purpose is still a matter of lively debate. Were they truly rhythmic instruments, the backbone of an Ice Age percussion section? Or were they something more mundane, like a tally stick for counting, or a tool for straightening arrow shafts, with the sound being a mere byproduct? The truth is, we will likely never know for sure, but to hold a replica in your hand and scrape a stick along its notches is to feel the undeniable pull of its rhythmic potential. Your sonic palette is expanding. The world is full of things that can be made to rattle and shake. You find a dried gourd, its seeds rattling loosely inside. You shake it, and it produces a soft, swishing sound, a gentle, persistent rhythm like rain on dry leaves. This is perfect. It's a sound that doesn't dominate, but fills the space. A sonic bed over which a flute or a voice can soar. You begin to experiment. You fill other containers, animal bladders, turtle shells, woven pouches, with pebbles, teeth, or dried berries, each one creating a rattle with its own unique voice, from a sharp clatter to a soft hiss. Then, you find a way to make your own body a shaker. You collect the hard, bony hooves of a slain deer, drill holes in them, and tie them to a leather strap around your ankle. Now, your very movements are music. Every step you take, every stomp in a dance around the fire, is punctuated by a dry, clacking rhythm. You are no longer just a musician, you are a living instrument. But of all the instruments in this new textural orchestra, one is the most mysterious, the most simple in its construction, and the most unearthly in its sound. You take a flat, thin slat of wood, perhaps from a birch tree, and carve it into a rounded airfoil-like shape. You tie a long cord of twisted sinew to one end. That's it. That's the entire instrument. It looks like nothing more than a child's toy. But then you begin to swing it, whirling it around your head on its long cord. At first, there is only the whisper of air, but as you build up speed, a low hum begins. Faster and faster you swing, and the hum grows into a deep, vibrating, roaring sound that seems to come from all directions at once. It's a sound that makes the hair on your arms stand up, a sound that seems impossibly large for such a small object. This is the Bullroarer, and it is, as a mainstream historical fact, one of the most ancient and widespread instruments on the entire planet. Bullroarers dating back tens of thousands of years have been found on virtually every inhabited continent, from Australia to the Americas to Africa. The sound is so strange, so unlike anything else in nature, that it's almost always associated with the supernatural. This is the quirky and fascinating power of the Bullroarer. Its voice was almost universally interpreted as the voice of a spirit, an ancestor, or a god. In many cultures, its use was shrouded in secrecy and ritual. It was forbidden for the uninitiated, particularly women and children, to even look upon the instrument. They would only hear its vibrant, terrifying moan coming from the woods during a sacred ceremony, and be told it was a spirit visiting the mortal world. For you, whirling this piece of wood above your head, feeling its powerful vibration travel up the cord into your own bones, you are not just making music. You are calling something. You are filling the air with a sound that blurs the line between the natural and the supernatural. A sound that makes your small world feel suddenly much, much larger. You have filled your world with the thunder of drums, the whisper of flutes, and the chattering of rattles. You can command the solid earth and the empty air to make your music. But one entire family of sound remains silent, its discovery locked behind a door that is both incredibly obvious and maddeningly difficult to open. This is the world of the string, and its origin story is the most enigmatic of all. The leading theory, elegant and compelling, ties its birth directly to the single most important technological innovation since the control of fire. The hunting bow. You are a hunter, silent and patient, concealed in a thicket of scrub brush. A giant deer steps into the clearing. You draw back the sinew string of your bow, your muscles screaming with tension. The world narrows to the point of your flint arrowhead. You release. The arrow flies true. and for a split second after it has left your grasp, a sound cuts through the silence. It is a sharp, resonant twang. It is a pure musical note, born from the violent release of tension. For countless generations, that sound meant only one thing: a successful shot, the promise of meat for the clan. It was a sound of function, a sonic byproduct of a lethal act. But your brain, now wired for musical thought, is beginning to hear it differently. Back at the camp, you hold your unstrung bow, a simple piece of flexible yew wood. You run your thumb along the taut gut string. You pluck it. Thrum. The note is quiet, much quieter than the loud twang of a shot. But it's there. A low, gentle vibration you can feel in the wood and in your own hands. You are no longer a hunter. You are an experimenter in acoustics. What happens if you make the string tighter? You brace the bow and twist the string, increasing its tension. You pluck it again. The note is higher, clearer. You have just discovered the fundamental principle of all stringed instruments, the direct relationship between tension and pitch. This simple act of plucking a hunting bow for its sound marks the birth of an entirely new instrument, the music bow. In its simplest form, it's just that: a bow repurposed for sound instead of hunting. But its sound is small, intimate, easily lost in the crackle of a fire or the chatter of the clan. To be heard, it needs an amplifier. And once again, you turn to the most convenient tool you have: your own body. You place one end of the bow against your mouth, holding it gently between your teeth, and pluck the string again. The effect is magical. The sound travels through the wood, through your jawbone, and into your head. Your entire oral cavity, your mouth, your sinuses, becomes a resonating chamber. The tiny, quiet thrum is now a loud, buzzing, vibrant note that you can change and shape. This is the quirky tidbit of early string music. By changing the shape of your mouth, opening and closing your throat, you can isolate different harmonics and create a simple, bouncing melody, all from a single, unchanging string. You have turned your own head into a speaker. Why then, if the bow is so ancient and this principle is so simple, do we not have evidence for stringed instruments that is as old as the 40,000-year-old flutes of Hohlefels? The answer lies in a simple, frustrating truth: the curse of organic materials. Your bow is made of wood. Its string is made of animal gut or plant fiber. The music bow is an instrument of the living world. And when you are finished with it, it returns to that world. It rots, decays, and vanishes, leaving no trace for a future archaeologist to discover. This is the great challenge of musical history. Our picture is permanently skewed towards the things that last: the stone, the bone, the ivory. The vast orchestras of wood, skin, and fiber that likely dominated the prehistoric soundscape have almost entirely disappeared. Our oldest solid evidence for a stringed instrument comes not from the object itself, but from an image. It is a famous and mysterious painting on the wall of the Trois Frères cave in the French Pyrenees. Painted around 13,000 BCE, it shows a composite figure, part human and part animal, often called the sorcerer. And in its hands, it appears to be holding and playing a music bow. It's a mainstream fact and a vital clue, but it's also 27,000 years younger than the first flutes. This immense gap in the evidence fuels one of the most fascinating chicken and egg debates in the study of our ancient past. Archaeologists and musicologists debate whether the hunting bow inspired the musical bow, or if a simple musical instrument, A gourd with a string over it independently evolved into the more powerful hunting weapon. Did the lethal twang of the hunt slowly soften into the gentle thrum of music? Or was it the other way around? Perhaps a child's toy, a simple stick with a reed stretched across it, revealed the acoustic principle of a taut string. Maybe that principle was then refined, scaled up, and militarized, turning a plaything into a deadly projectile launcher. The journey from sound to silence, or from silence to sound, remains a mystery. But as you sit there, humming a melody into the wood of your bow, feeling its vibration in your own skull, you are at the heart of that mystery, holding an object that is both a provider of life and a creator of song, a perfect symbol of the intertwined nature of survival and art. As your Homo sapiens ancestors began to master the full orchestra of stone, bone, and gut, you were not alone in the world. Across the vast, cold plains of Ice Age Eurasia, another kind of human was looking up at the same moon and stars. They were shorter, more robust, with a heavy brow ridge and a brain as large, or even slightly larger, than your own. These were the Neanderthals, your closest extinct relatives. For a long time we saw them as brutish, shuffling cavemen, a failed experiment in the human story. But that picture has been completely redrawn. We know now they were a deeply intelligent and capable people. They crafted sophisticated stone tools, hunted the largest and most dangerous game, controlled fire, and cared for their sick and elderly. It is a mainstream historical fact that they deliberately buried their dead, sometimes with grave goods like flowers or animal horns, an act which strongly implies a capacity for grief, ritual, and symbolic thought. They likely had some form of language, given that we now know they possessed the modern version of the FOXP2 gene. They were, in every meaningful sense, a separate and complete form of humanity. But there is one profound question that haunts our understanding of them. Did they have music? At the very heart of this question lies a single, controversial, and deeply evocative object. It was found in 1995, deep inside a cave in Slovenia called Divja Barb. It is a fragment of a juvenile cave bear's femur, the thigh bone, and it has been radiocarbon dated to around 60,000 years ago, a time when only Neanderthals lived in this region. What makes this piece of bone so extraordinary is that it has holes in it. 2 are complete, and there are partial fractures indicating 2 others. They are roughly circular and arranged in a straight line. To many who first saw it, the conclusion seemed inescapable. It was a flute, a Neanderthal flute, the oldest musical instrument in the world. If true, it would push back the origins of music tens of thousands of years before the ivory flutes of the Homo sapiens in Germany. It would prove that music was not a singular invention of our lineage, but a fundamental human expression shared by other hominins. This piece of bone is now the center of one of the most passionate and long-running debates in all of paleoanthropology. Researchers are fiercely divided as to whether this object is a priceless artifact of Neanderthal culture or nothing more than a paleontological red herring. The argument falls into 2 distinct camps. On one side, you have the believers. They argue that the holes are too regularly spaced, too neatly aligned, and too well-shaped to be the result of a random natural process. They point to acoustic experiments showing that replicas of the bone can indeed produce a range of musical notes. For them, the Divj-Babe flute is the smoking gun, the definitive proof of a Neanderthal mind capable of the kind of abstract, artistic thought required to create music. On the other side, you have the skeptics. Their argument is just as compelling. They propose that the holes are not man-made at all, but are the puncture marks left by the teeth of a scavenging cave hyena. The femur, they argue, was the chew toy of a large carnivore, and the neat alignment of the holes is a coincidence, a perfect match for the spacing of a hyena's powerful premolar teeth. The scientific evidence brought to bear on this single bone is staggering. It has been examined under scanning electron microscopes to look for the telltale microscopic striations that stone tools leave behind. The skeptics claim no such marks exist. It has been compared to thousands of other animal bones from predator dens, with some researchers claiming to have found identical puncture patterns. Taphonomists, forensic experts in animal predation and fossilization, have been called in to give their opinion, making this a quirky and highly specialized field, sometimes jokingly called Neanderthal fluteology. You are a Neanderthal now, 60,000 years ago, sitting in the mouth of that same Slovenian cave. The wind howls outside. In your hands you hold this piece of bone. Perhaps you are a scavenger. You found this bone, gnawed and discarded by a hyena, and you are simply running your fingers over the strange, smooth holes, a curiosity of nature. Or perhaps you are the artist. You spent hours carefully reaming out those holes with a sharp flint point, your mind filled not with thoughts of food or survival, but with the ghost of a sound, a melody you are trying to capture and bring into the world. What does it mean if you are that artist? It means your inner world is as rich as any that would come after. It means that when you looked into the darkness, you answered it not just with a fire or a spear, but with a song. The bone in your hand is silent now. It keeps its secret. And in that silence lies the entire, unresolved question of who you really were. The mystery of that Neanderthal bone will likely remain, a silent note in the deep history of humankind. But as we shift our focus back to your own lineage, the Homo sapiens who painted the great caves and carved the ivory flutes, the question of music becomes clearer. You now possess the full, modern vocal apparatus. The descended larynx, the floating hyoid bone, the fine-tuned control of the FOXP2 gene. All the pieces are in place. Your voice is no longer just a tool for making noise. It has become your first, finest, and most personal instrument. And you begin to play it in ways that go far beyond the simple exchange of information. You are discovering that your voice can do things that have nothing to do with words at all. You can create music that is purely, primordially vocal. This early singing is likely a universe away from what your descendants will one day call a melody. It's not about crafting beautiful lyrical phrases to please the ear. It is functional, raw, and powerful. It is about exploring the absolute limits of the human voice to achieve a specific goal. You discover chanting. By repeating a single phrase or even just a single syllable on a limited number of notes, over and over, you create a hypnotic, driving rhythm. The effect on the group is profound, locking everyone into the same pulsating energy, the same state of mind. You might discover techniques like yodeling, not as a form of alpine folk music, but as a brutally practical tool. The rapid, loud switch between your low chest voice and your high head voice creates a sound that can carry for miles across a mountain valley. A perfect way to communicate with a hunting party on the other side of a ridge. You might even incorporate the percussive clicks and pops of your spoken language, like those still heard in the Khoisan languages of southern Africa, weaving them into your songs as a kind of vocal drumming. One of the most fundamental structures for this new vocal music emerges almost naturally from the dynamic of the group. It is call and response. One person, the leader or storyteller, sings out a line, a call, and the rest of the group answers with a unified, repeated refrain. "The great mammoth walks!" He walks, he walks. His tusks are sharp as stone. Sharp as stone, sharp as stone. This pattern is a work of social genius. It's a mainstream fact of ethnomusicology that call and response is one of the most widespread musical structures on the planet, found in nearly every culture. Its power is its inclusivity. You don't need to be a great singer to participate. You only need to listen and echo the response. It turns a passive audience into an active chorus, binding the group together with every phrase. At the very edge of what seems physically possible, you might even discover one of the most extraordinary and otherworldly vocal techniques ever invented. This is the quirky and genuinely astonishing practice of overtone singing, or throat singing, still practiced today by people in Tuva, Mongolia, and Tibet. By precisely shaping your pharynx, tongue, and lips, you learn to isolate the natural overtones, the higher, quieter frequencies that exist within a single fundamental note you are humming. The effect is jaw-dropping. You can produce a low, continuous drone and a high, whistling, flute-like melody at the same time. A single human singer can create a chord, a duet with themselves. To a listener who doesn't understand the technique, it sounds utterly supernatural, like the voice of the wind itself, or a spirit humming in the air. And that is very likely the point. Ethnomusicologists still debate whether these complex vocal techniques were developed for purely spiritual purposes, or if they originated from more practical needs like animal mimicry for hunting. But their power to alter consciousness is undeniable. The primary function of this new, sophisticated vocal music is to connect with the world beyond the visible. When a shaman begins a low, monotonous chant, he isn't just singing a song. He is using the vibrations in his own skull and chest as an engine to begin a journey. The sound is a vehicle to enter a trance state, to travel to the world of the spirits, to ask the great animal masters for a successful hunt, or to guide the soul of the recently deceased on its way. The human voice, your voice, has become the most direct and potent link you have between your inner, conscious self and the vast, mysterious and unseen forces that you believe govern your world. You don't need a flute or a drum. You just need your own breath and the will to give it a voice. Your voice has become a direct line to the unseen world, a tool for shaping emotion and entering the realm of spirits. But its true power, and the power of all the instruments you have discovered, is not fully unleashed until it is combined, until the individual streams of sound merge into a single, mighty river. You are gathered with your clan. It is deep in the night, the only light coming from the great, crackling fire in the center of the camp, a beacon of warmth and safety against the immense, pressing darkness of the Ice Age world. The day's work is done, bellies are full, and the time for something else has arrived. It begins with a single, deep, resonant boom. An elder is sitting before a large, flat piece of wood, over which aurochs hide has been stretched and dried, creating a simple frame drum. He strikes it with the palm of his hand, not in a frantic, complex rhythm, but in a slow, steady, deliberate pulse. Boom, boom, boom. It is the sound of a giant's heart, a beat that is felt as much as it is heard, a vibration that travels from the hard-packed earth up through your feet, and into your chest. It is the foundation, the heartbeat for the entire clan. Then another sound joins in. A woman on the other side of the fire picks up the notched jawbone you once discovered, and with a deer's rib, she begins to scrape out a dry, chattering rhythm. It's a sound that rides on top of the drum beat, a texture of insects and dry grass laid over the deep earth of the drum. Now a voice enters. It's the shaman, the storyteller. He begins a low, guttural chant, a call that hangs in the smoky air. He sings a single line about the spirit of the great cave bear. And in the space after his call, the whole clan answers as one. Your voice joins with 30 others in a powerful, unified response. A single word shouted into the night. The call and response pattern weaves between the drum and the scraper, creating a thick, complex and hypnotic web of sound. And then, just when you think the structure is complete, another sound cuts through it all. It is high, clear, and impossibly pure. A young woman raises the Vulture-Bone flute to her lips, and a simple 5-note melody soars above the rhythmic chaos below, a silver thread in a heavy, dark tapestry. Remember that sound of a single whistling breath? It is now the voice of a bird, the cry of a spirit, a line of pure beauty drawn across the raw power of the group. This is a symphony. It is not a symphony of harmony in the modern sense. That is a musical invention tens of thousands of years in the future. Instead, what you are creating is something musicologists call heterophony, a texture where multiple performers play the same basic melodic line, but each with their own individual variations and ornaments. The shaman may be chanting the core melody, but the flute player is embellishing it, dancing around it, playing her own interpretation. It's a mainstream fact that this kind of layered, simultaneous variation is a common feature in many of the world's oldest surviving musical traditions. It's a music that is both unified and deeply individual. But what is it all for? Why this elaborate and energy-intensive construction of sound? Is it a ritual to bless the hunters before they set out at dawn? A celebration of a successful hunt? A storytelling session to pass on the deeds of the ancestors to the young? Or is it something more somber? A funeral rite to guide a departed soul on its journey? The purpose is fluid, and perhaps it is all of these things at once. Whatever its specific function, its effect on you and everyone present is undeniable. This is the science of emotional contagion in action. As you listen, your own internal state begins to mirror the music. The driving, unified beat synchronizes your breathing and your heart rate with the person sitting next to you. The shaman's powerful chant and the group's roaring response trigger a massive release of endorphins in your brain, washing away individual anxieties and creating a powerful feeling of collective euphoria and belonging. A quirky but influential idea from the modern world, proposed by the psychologist Steven Pinker, is that music is auditory cheesecake. It's not a direct evolutionary adaptation itself, but a delightful byproduct, a confection that we invented to tickle the brain's pleasure centers that originally evolved for more important things like language and motor control. But sitting here, feeling the group's spirit surge into a single, living entity, it feels like much more than dessert. It feels like the main course. This is the very moment that music transforms from a collection of individual discoveries into a collective performance. This is the birth of the concert. And yet, there is a fundamental difference. Archaeologists and ethnomusicologists still argue whether a distinct role of performer and audience existed in these early contexts, or if these events were fully participatory, with no division between the creators and the receivers of the music. Here, around this fire, the line is completely blurred. The drummer and the flutist may be specialists, but you, with your voice in the chorus, are just as vital to the sound. Everyone is a participant. Everyone is making the music together. It is a shared, communal act of creation, a sonic barn-raising. The symphony of the group is complete. The firelit performance has woven your clan into a single, breathing entity, a temporary superorganism pulsed by the same beat. But this powerful tool, this engine of social cohesion, is about to be put to its most profound and mysterious use. The music of the group is not just for celebrating or bonding. It is a technology for traveling, not across the land, but into the mind and beyond, into the world of the spirits. At the center of this journey is the shaman, the spiritual practitioner of your clan. Their toolkit contains many powerful objects, sacred stones, bundles of herbs, the skins, basins of powerful animals. But their most important and versatile tool is sound. They are the master of the clan's music, not because they are the most virtuosic player, but because they understand how to use rhythm and sound to systematically unmake the world of ordinary reality. The key is repetition. The shaman begins a beat on a hide drum. It is not complex. It is not, in itself, particularly interesting. It is a simple, monotonous, unvarying pulse. Thump, 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 thump. For minutes that stretch into an hour, and perhaps longer, this is the only sound. This is the science of the trance state, a technique our species has independently discovered time and time again all over the world. A relentless, predictable sensory input, like a drum beat or a chant, begins to have a strange effect on your brain. It floods the auditory pathways, overloading the thalamus, the brain's great gatekeeper for sensory information. The parts of your brain responsible for orienting you in space and time, for maintaining the boundary between you and not you, begin to quiet down. Your brain waves themselves, the electrical pulses of your own consciousness, begin to entrain to the external rhythm, shifting from the busy beta waves of waking thought to the slower, more dreamlike alpha and theta waves. You are not falling asleep. You are entering a highly focused, internally directed state of awareness. The external world fades away, and the internal world, the world of memory, emotion, and myth, rises up with the vividness of a dream. This powerful connection between sound and spirituality is written quite literally on the walls of the most sacred places of the Paleolithic world, the great painted caves. You are leaving the familiar sunlit world behind, following the shaman deep into the belly of the earth. In the utter darkness, the only light is from the sputtering flame of a tallow lamp held in your hand. You squeeze through narrow passages, crawl on your hands and knees, your world shrinking to the small pool of light at your feet. Finally, you enter a vast vaulted chamber, and as you lift your lamp, the walls explode into life. Majestic aurochs, powerful bison, herds of horses, and enigmatic geometric symbols cover the rock surfaces, their colors as rich and vibrant as the day they were painted 20,000 years ago. This is a mainstream historical fact that has long fascinated researchers. The placement of this art is not random. It is often located in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the caves, places that are incredibly difficult and dangerous to reach. Why? A compelling answer comes from the field of archaeoacoustics. Researchers have gone into these caves, places like Lascaux and Chauvet, and systematically mapped their sonic properties. They have popped balloons, played recordings of drum beats, and sung notes, measuring the reverberation and resonance of each chamber. Their findings are astonishing. There is a direct and powerful correlation between the chambers with the most resonant, echo-filled acoustics and the chambers that contain the most paintings. The art is clustered in the natural auditoriums. This leads to a profound scholarly debate. Ethnomusicologists and archaeologists still debate whether the paintings were created first and the sounds came later, or if these caves were chosen because of their sonic properties, making them natural cathedrals for ritual. Were these places selected precisely because they could amplify a chant or a drum beat into a thundering, all-encompassing wave of sound? You are standing in one of these natural cathedrals now. The shaman begins the slow, steady beat on a drum. In the open air, it's a simple percussive sound. Here, in this resonant chamber, it is transformed. Each beat hangs in the air, the echo blending with the next strike, creating a continuous, vibrating wall of sound that you feel in your bones. A quirky tidbit of physics. Every enclosed space has a resonant frequency, a specific pitch at which the space will vibrate most powerfully. It seems the shamans found these spots and tuned their chants to them, their voices suddenly booming with an unearthly, god-like authority. As the beat continues, the flickering, unstable light from your tallow lamp makes the paintings on the wall seem to move. The legs of the bison seem to flicker and run. The great bull seems to breathe in the wavering shadows. The sound and the light are working together. A prehistoric, multimedia experience designed to dissolve the boundaries of reality. You are no longer in a cave. You are in the spirit world, the Dreamtime, the other side. The music is not a performance you are watching. It is the vehicle you are riding into the deepest territories of the human mind. The shaman's drum has faded, the echoes in the cave have died, and you have returned to the world of firelight and familiar faces. The trance has broken, but something lingers. There is an invisible web of connection binding you to the others who shared the journey, a feeling of trust and closeness that is deeper than mere kinship. This feeling, this profound sense of belonging, is not just a happy accident of the ritual. It is one of the most ancient and vital functions of music. It is the sound of your society forging itself into something stronger than the sum of its parts. To understand why this is so critical, you have to look at the fundamental problem your ancestors faced every single day: how to stick together. For our primate cousins like chimpanzees and baboons, the primary social glue is physical grooming. You see it all the time, one monkey meticulously picking through the fur of another, removing parasites and dirt. This is not just about hygiene. It is the primate currency of friendship, trust, and alliance building. It feels good, reduces stress, and solidifies social bonds one-on-one. But grooming, for all its effectiveness, has a critical limitation. It doesn't scale. You can only groom one individual at a time. As your hominin groups began to grow larger, moving from small family units to clans of 100 or more, you would have hit a mathematical ceiling. To maintain social cohesion through grooming alone, you would have had to spend nearly half your day picking nits out of each other's hair, leaving no time for essential tasks like finding food, making tools, or raising children. This is the core of a powerful theory from the British anthropologist Robin Dunbar. As your social world expanded, you needed a new, more efficient mechanism for social bonding. You needed a way to groom multiple allies at once. His answer? You evolved two remarkable technologies for grooming at a distance: laughter and music. This is the mainstream fact of the theory. Music didn't just appear for fun. It was a solution to a demographic crisis. The chemical mechanism behind this is wonderfully elegant. The scientific evidence from modern neuroscience is clear and compelling. When you and your clan sing together, or drum in unison, or move as one in a dance, your brains begin to release a flood of powerful neurochemicals called endorphins. These are your body's natural opioids, its internally produced morphine. They are potent analgesics, which is why they evolved in the first place, to numb pain during an injury or extreme exertion. But they have another equally important effect. They produce a mild state of euphoria, a feeling of warmth, contentment, and deep social connection. The high you feel after a vigorous workout or a deep belly laugh is the feeling of endorphins washing through your system. Music, especially participatory music making, is one of the most reliable ways to turn on this neurological tap for an entire group at once. One person singing a song around the fire is, in a chemical sense, grooming everyone within earshot. A drummer keeping a beat is stroking the nervous system of the entire clan. The pleasure you feel isn't just in your ears, it's a full-body psychoactive experience that tells you on a primal chemical level, these are my people. I am safe here. I belong. The quirky tidbit is that this makes music and laughter chemically related, two different paths to the same neurochemical destination of social bonding. Now imagine the night has fallen completely. The fire is your only shield against a darkness that is not empty, but filled with unseen threats. The stalking hyena, the prowling lion. In these moments, silence is terrifying. Silence is vulnerability. And so, your group begins to make music. It might be a soft, communal hum, or a rhythmic chant that is just loud enough to hear over the wind. This is the safety in sound idea. Your music is building a sonic fortress, a wall of pure vibration that pushes back against the encroaching darkness. It is more than just a bonding activity. It's a collective declaration of presence and strength. It tells the darkness and anything listening within it, we are here. We are awake. We are many. And we are one. The sound connects all of you, huddled in your small circle of light, reassuring each individual that they are not alone. You are replacing the silence of fear with the sound of community, and in doing so, you are making the long, dangerous night just a little more survivable. The communal song has fortified your clan, creating a sonic fortress of belonging that keeps the fear of the long night at bay. The endorphin glow has washed over everyone, cementing the bonds that help you all survive. But now, as the group's energy settles and the fire burns down to glowing embers, another, more ancient and individualistic drive emerges. The need to survive is paramount, but the need to pass on your own genes runs just as deep. And for that, you need to solve a different kind of problem. It's not about the safety of the group. It's about the attention of a single person. The music you make now is not for the gods, nor is it for the tribe. It is for the heart. You are seeing this through the eyes of Charles Darwin once again. Remember his idea that the first music was born from the passions of courtship? This is the sexual selection theory, and it is one of the most powerful explanations for why music, a seemingly useless activity from a survival standpoint, has such a tenacious hold on our species. The theory's central idea is that of the honest signal, a display that is so costly or difficult to produce that it serves as a reliable, unfakeable indicator of an individual's fitness. The classic example is the peacock's tail. A huge, iridescent train of feathers is a metabolic disaster. It's heavy, makes flying difficult, and acts as a giant, shimmering, eat-me sign for predators. It does absolutely nothing to help the peacock survive. In fact, it does the opposite. But that's precisely why the peahen finds it so attractive. A male who can not only survive but thrive while dragging around such a ridiculous, beautiful burden must have truly exceptional genes. He is giving an honest signal of his genetic quality. Now, think of your music in the same way. The ability to create a complex and beautiful song is your version of the peacock's tail. It's a mainstream historical fact that this theory views music as a demonstration of your underlying genetic and cognitive fitness. Let's break down what your performance is honestly signaling to a potential mate. First, cognitive prowess. To remember a long, complex melody, or even better, to improvise a new one on the spot, requires a large and sophisticated brain with a powerful memory. It shows you're clever. Second, fine motor skills. To play a bone flute with dexterity, your fingers flying over the holes, or to execute a complex rhythm on a drum, demonstrates a healthy, well-coordinated nervous system. It shows you're capable. Third, physical health. To sing a long, powerful vocal line requires immense breath control and a robust respiratory system, signaling that you are strong and free from disease. And finally, it might even signal your social standing. Having the free time to sit around perfecting a song, rather than desperately foraging for every last scrap of food, implies that you are a successful provider who is well integrated into a thriving group. Your music is a full-body resume, a detailed genetic report set to a beat. This kind of elaborate artistic display for the purpose of seduction is not just a human quirk. As a truly bizarre and wonderful tidbit, consider the satin bowerbird of Australia. The male bowerbird doesn't have brilliant plumage, so he creates his own. He builds an intricate structure of twigs, a bower, which is essentially a bachelor pad designed for courtship. He then meticulously decorates it, often with objects of a single specific color, usually a brilliant blue. He will scour the forest for blue flowers, blue berries, blue feathers, and in the modern world, even blue bottle caps and ballpoint pens. He arranges them perfectly. Then, when a female approaches, he puts on a show, performing a complex song and a frantic, buzzing dance. The female inspects his bower, judges his performance, and if she's impressed with his architectural and artistic skills, she will consent to mate with him. He is not just building a nest, he is creating a work of art for the sole purpose of proving his worth. This, of course, raises a fascinating and speculative question about your own society. Evolutionary psychologists still debate the precise roles males and females played in this musical courtship. Was it primarily the males who, like the peacock and the bowerbird, were the virtuosic performers, competing with each other in elaborate displays of song and dance to attract the attention of the females? And were the females the discerning audience, the critics, using their aesthetic sense to judge the quality of the performance and, by extension, the genetic fitness of the performer? Or was it more of a two-way street, a musical duet where both parties engaged in a call and response of skill and creativity to assess their compatibility? The evidence for such specific behaviors is lost to time, but the underlying principle likely holds. Your song is a signal, a broadcast. As you sit across the fire, your eyes meet those of a potential partner. You raise your flute or begin a soft, intricate rhythm. You are not just making sound. You are sending a message, coded in melody and rhythm, that says, "Listen to this. This is the quality of the mind and body that I have to offer. I am healthy. I am clever. I am worthy." You are singing the world's first love song. The love song has been sung, its notes fading into the embers of the fire like a whispered promise. But the same skills you used to signal your fitness to a mate, the powerful lungs, the nimble fingers, the sharp mind capable of remembering a melody, are now required for a task of a very different nature. The tender music of the heart must now give way to the tense, strategic music of the hunt. The survival of the clan depends not just on your ability to attract a partner, but on your collective ability to bring down the massive, dangerous beasts that roam your Ice Age world. Music is about to become a tool of lethal coordination. The hunt begins not with a bang, but with a whisper. You are moving in a small, silent party through the dense undergrowth, tracking a herd of giant elk. Every sound is a risk. A snapped twig, a clumsy footfall, a careless cough could alert your prey and end the hunt before it has even begun. Communication is essential, but a spoken word is an unaffordable luxury. And so, you rely on a different kind of language, a secret music of the forest that your prey does not understand. The leader of your party suddenly lets out a sharp, clear whistle. To the elk, it is nothing more than the call of a hawk circling overhead. To you, it is a precise, coded signal. Prey spotted. Halt. A moment later, a different call comes from your flank, a soft, two-note coo that mimics a wood pigeon. It means, "I am in position." This is a mainstream historical fact of hunting cultures the world over. The use of animal call mimicry as a sophisticated form of communication. This is music at its most subtle and functional. A vocabulary of notes and tones where each melody is a command, a question, or a piece of vital, real-time information. But the hunt did not begin here in the silent forest. It began hours earlier, back at the camp, with a performance that was the absolute opposite of silent. You stood with the other hunters, your bodies painted with ochre and ash, and you performed the dance of the hunt. To the beat of a frantic, driving drum, you sang the song of the spear. It was not a beautiful melody. It was a powerful, rhythmic chant, a war cry that built in intensity until the air itself seemed to vibrate with your collective intent. This was a tool of psychological preparation, a way to forge a group of nervous individuals into a single, fearless killing machine. The scientific evidence lies in your own physiology. The rhythmic chanting and vigorous dancing flood your system with adrenaline, heightening your senses and priming your muscles for action. At the same time, the shared, unified experience modulates the production of stress hormones like cortisol, suppressing individual fear and replacing it with a feeling of collective power and invincibility. It is a neurological and hormonal cocktail mixed by rhythm and voice, designed to turn you into the perfect predator. Now, the hunt is over. The great elk has fallen, and its body has been brought back to the camp in a triumphant procession. The mood is euphoric, but the music is not finished. Its final and perhaps most crucial role is about to be played. As the clan gathers around the fire to share the bounty, the story of the hunt must be told. But you don't just speak it. That would be too thin, too forgettable. You turn it into a song. The leader of the hunt, now the lead singer, chants the narrative. He sings of the long track, the moment the elk was sighted, the tension of the stalk. He imitates the hawk call signal in his song, and the other hunters who were there answer with the pigeon coo response. The song describes the final, terrifying charge, the moment the spear was thrown, the great animal's final breath. A quirky but vital part of this is that the song isn't just a story. It's a schematic, a technical manual. It encodes vital information. The young, listening intently, are not just being entertained. They are learning the terrain, the habits of the prey, the specific signals to use, the exact spot to aim the spear. Anthropologists still debate whether the primary function of such narrative songs was educational, a form of oral blueprint for survival, or if it was more about social status, allowing successful hunters to solidify their reputation within the clan. Either way, the result is the same. The song takes a single, ephemeral event and transforms it into a piece of permanent cultural knowledge. It becomes part of your clan's library, a story that can be sung again and again, ensuring that the lessons learned in blood and terror will not be forgotten. It is the very beginning of the oral tradition, the birth of the epic poem. From the silent, coded bird call to the roaring pre-hunt war cry to the narrative victory chant, music has been your constant companion. It was your radio, your courage, and your history book, an indispensable technology for surviving the brutal, high-stakes reality of the Paleolithic world. The thrilling, terrifying song of the hunt has faded, its purpose served. The story has been told, the knowledge passed on, and the spoils of the chase have been shared. Now, in the quiet aftermath, you turn your attention from the needs of the clan to the needs of its smallest, most vulnerable member. Remember that infant you soothed with the instinctive, melodic cooing of motherese? They are here in your arms, their small body tense, their face crumpled in a cry that seems to fill the entire world. The hunger has been sated, they are warm and dry, but still they wail. And so, you begin to sing. It is not a song of power, or strategy, or courtship. It is the most ancient and universal music of all, the lullaby. Your voice softens, dropping to a gentle hum. You find a simple, short melody, a phrase of just a few notes that you can repeat over and over, like waves lapping on a shore. You instinctively begin to rock your body in time with the tune, a gentle swaying motion that your child feels through your arms and chest. The song has no grand story. The words, if there are any at all, are just soft, meaningless sounds, chosen for their round, soothing quality. You are not performing. You are communicating on a channel that runs deeper than language. Your song is a direct signal to your child's nervous system, a sonic message that says, "You are safe. The world is calm. You can let go." And slowly, miraculously, it works. The frantic cries soften into whimpers, the tense little body relaxes against yours, and the clenched eyelids begin to flutter and close. You don't know the science, of course, but what you are doing is a piece of masterful, evolutionary biohacking. The scientific evidence from modern neuroscience is unequivocal. The acoustic structure of a lullaby is perfectly engineered to influence an infant's brain. The simple, highly predictable and repetitive melodic structure is easy for a developing brain to process, preventing sensory overload. The narrow pitch range and slow tempo have a direct physiological effect, measurably lowering a baby's heart rate, reducing the levels of stress hormones, and regulating their breathing. You are, in essence, using your voice to remotely control your infant's autonomic nervous system, guiding them out of a state of high alert and into the calm necessary for sleep. This musical education continues as your child grows. The infant in your arms becomes a curious toddler. The soothing lullaby gives way to the playful song. You sit them on your knee and chant a rhythmic verse while bouncing them up and down. You teach them a clapping game, a sequence of slaps and claps that must be performed in perfect time with a simple, catchy tune. Music becomes the primary vehicle for their first lessons about the world. You invent songs to help them learn to count their fingers and toes. You create chants that teach them the names of important animals: the lumbering mammoth, the dangerous lion, the clever fox. The rhythm and melody act as a kind of neurological glue, making the information sticky and far easier to remember than a simple list of spoken facts. It's a quirky and enduring tidbit of human cognition that the melody of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" is the same as the alphabet song, a piece of ancient wisdom recognizing that music is the ultimate mnemonic device. What is truly astonishing is how similar this music of childhood is to the entire globe. It's a mainstream fact that if you analyze folk lullabies from wildly different cultures, from ancient China to rural Appalachia to the Kalahari Desert, they share a startling number of acoustic features. The most common is a simple, rocking meter, either 3/4 or 6/8 time, that perfectly mimics that gentle, swaying motion. They also tend to feature simple, descending melodic contours, a musical shape that feels like a release of tension, a gentle settling down. This global similarity is so striking that developmental psychologists still argue whether the structure of the lullaby is a deep, biological instinct hardwired into our parental brain, or a piece of incredibly ancient and successful cultural technology that was simply learned and passed down because it worked so well. Is it nature, or is it nurture that is tens of thousands of years old? In the quiet of the night, holding your sleeping child, the distinction seems irrelevant. The song has done its work. It has been a shield against fear and a bridge to sleep, the softest and perhaps the most important music your world has ever known. The soft music of the lullaby has done its work, guiding your child into sleep and reinforcing the deep, pre-verbal bond between you. You have used melody and rhythm to teach, to soothe, and to connect, all without the need for complex grammatical language. This raises a profound question. Which came first? Did you learn to speak and then add a musical flourish to your words? Or is music something far more ancient, the very root from which language itself grew? You are standing at the edge of one of the greatest chicken and egg problems in human evolution, and the answer may lie in the very sounds you are beginning to make. As your vocalizations become more complex, you start to discover the power of pitch. You realize that a single sound, a simple grunt like ba, can have many different meanings depending on the musical contour you give it. If you say it with a high rising tone, ba, it's a question. A sharp falling tone, ba, is a command. A flat level tone, ba, is a simple statement. You are using the music of your voice, its prosody, to carry your intention. This is not some primitive, half-formed idea. It's a fundamental principle that remains at the heart of many modern languages. It's a mainstream fact that a huge portion of the world's languages are tonal. In Mandarin Chinese, for instance, the word ma can mean mother, hemp, horse, or to scold, depending entirely on the pitch contour, the melody, with which it is spoken. For billions of people today, music isn't an addition to language. It is an inseparable part of its basic grammar. This deep entanglement has led to a fascinating and compelling theory known as the prosody-first hypothesis. The idea is that your communication didn't start with words. It started with holistic musical phrases. Before you had a word for saber-toothed cat, you had a specific, urgent, melodic cry that meant, "Danger over there, looks like a cat, we should run." It was a single, unpassable chunk of musical meaning. The theory posits that only much later did your brain develop the ability to break these holistic phrases down into smaller parts. You began to notice that one part of the phrase seemed to refer to the object, cat, and another part referred to the action, run. Discrete words, in this view, literally precipitated out of a pre-existing musical soup. The quirky tidbit here is to imagine your ancestors communicating like opera singers, where the dramatic, melodic line was the primary carrier of meaning, and the specific lyrics were a later refinement. This idea is powerfully supported by modern neuroscience, which provides the most compelling scientific evidence for a shared origin. Using tools like fMRI scanners, we can watch the living brain as it processes language and music, and what we see is a remarkable amount of overlap. For a long time, we believed in a simple division of labor. The left hemisphere of the brain did language, and the right hemisphere did music. We now know it's far more complex and integrated. Two key language centers in the brain, Broca's area, traditionally linked to grammar and syntax, and Wernicke's area, linked to meaning and semantics, are not just for language. When a musician is improvising a melody, or a listener is trying to make sense of a complex chord progression, these same language areas light up with activity. Broca's area, it seems, isn't just a grammar checker for words, it's a syntax checker for sequences, whether those sequences are words in a sentence or notes in a melody. The brain appears to be using the same fundamental software to build structure and find meaning in both domains. This shared neural real estate is the battleground for the great academic question at the heart of this mystery. Linguists and neuroscientists continue to explore the chicken and egg problem. Did our brains evolve for language, and those structures were later used for music? Or did our brains evolve for musical processing, which then laid the foundation for language? One side argues that language, with its clear survival benefit of allowing precise communication, was the primary driver. Our brains developed the sophisticated machinery for syntax and semantics, and music came along later as a kind of auditory cheesecake, a delightful invention that simply repurposed this powerful linguistic hardware for aesthetic pleasure. The other side argues for the opposite. The ability to process pitch, rhythm, and emotional contour, the core components of music, came first, perhaps for the purposes of social bonding and infant care, as we've seen. This created a neurologically musical brain, and this pre-existing foundation, this scaffolding of prosody and rhythm, was the perfect platform upon which the building blocks of symbolic language could later be assembled. In this view, music isn't a frivolous dessert. It is the very plate on which language is served. As you sit with your clan, moving from a melodic hum to a more specific, word-like utterance, you are living this transition. You are the bridge, your every vocalization a small piece of evidence in an evolutionary puzzle we are still trying to solve. You are now living in a world that is rich in sound, emotion, and burgeoning language. You have music for the gods, for the tribe, for your lover, and for your child. But all of these incredible developments are built upon a terrifyingly fragile foundation. Your entire world, everything you and your ancestors have ever learned, is stored on the most volatile and delicate hard drive ever created: human memory. There are no books. There is no writing. Every piece of essential information, the history of your people, the intricate lines of kinship that tell you who you can and cannot marry, the sacred laws handed down from the spirits, the detailed mental map of your territory with its waterholes and dangers, all of it exists only in the minds of the living. When an elder dies, a library burns to the ground. In this pre-literate society, the single greatest challenge to your long-term survival is data retention. How do you ensure that your critical knowledge is passed down perfectly intact from one generation to the next? The answer, you discover, is to stop telling people the important things. Instead, you sing it to them. You are about to weaponize the power of music, turning it into the world's first information storage technology. You need to teach a long and complex genealogy, a list of 30 ancestors. Spoken as a flat list, it's a forgettable and boring recitation. But you set it to a simple, repetitive chant. You give it a rhythm and a rhyming structure. Great Father Boar, who hunted the bear, begat the son Thaw, with fire in his hair. And Thaw's son was Fen, who lived in the den. Suddenly, the information has a shape. It has hooks. Your brain, which is a masterful pattern recognition machine, latches on to the predictable structure. The rhythm tells you how many syllables to expect. The rhyme narrows down the possible words, and the melody wraps the whole package in an emotional context that makes it salient and memorable. This is the incredible mnemonic power of music, a piece of cognitive technology you use every single day. The scientific evidence for this is woven into the fabric of your own modern mind. Think about this for a moment. It's a truly quirky tidbit about your own brain. Can you remember with perfect clarity exactly what you ate for lunch last Tuesday? Probably not. Now, can you remember the lyrics to a popular song from when you were a teenager, a song you haven't intentionally listened to in 20 years? Very likely you can summon them up with surprising accuracy. Why? Because that trivial, useless information was encoded with rhythm, rhyme, and melody, while that vital, life-sustaining information about your lunch was not. Music acts as a kind of mental scaffolding, providing a pre-built structure upon which you can hang otherwise disconnected facts. It chunks data into manageable, memorable packets. This turns certain individuals in your clan into figures of immense importance. You are the storyteller, the lore master, the living archive. You are not just an entertainer, you are the guardian of the collective memory. When a dispute arises over a territory boundary, the clan doesn't consult a map. They consult you, and you don't give them a dry legal opinion. You close your eyes, and you begin to sing the song of the Great Migration, an ancient epic whose verses contain a detailed, landmark-by-landmark description of the lands your ancestors claimed. When it's time for the young to learn the laws, you don't recite a code. You sing the cautionary tale of the man who broke taboo and was punished by the spirits, the law itself embedded in the moral of the story. Your mind is a library, and every song is a book on its shelves. This isn't just a quaint prehistoric practice. It is a mainstream historical fact that this was the primary method of information storage for some of the most foundational works of human literature. The great epic poems of ancient Greece, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, were not originally written texts. They were oral traditions, vast compositions containing hundreds of thousands of words that were sung or chanted by bards who had committed the entire works to memory. They could do this because the poems were written in a strict poetic meter, a rhythmic straitjacket that made it far easier to remember and far harder to alter. The same is true of the sacred Sanskrit Vedas in India, which were transmitted orally with perfect fidelity for centuries before ever being written down. The music was the medium, the fail-safe that ensured the message survived. And this leads to a fascinating, unresolved question. Cognitive archaeologists still argue whether the mnemonic power of music was a primary evolutionary driver for its development, a killer app that gave musical societies a huge survival advantage, or simply a fortunate byproduct of a system that evolved for social bonding. Did you learn to sing because it felt good to do it together, and only later realize, hey, this is also great for remembering stuff? Or was the urgent need for a reliable memory palace the very thing that drove your brain to become musical in the first place? Whatever the answer, your song is now more than just art or ritual. It is your immortality. The song of the Lawmaster has secured your clan's past, weaving your history into a resilient, memorable tapestry. You have used music to build your world, to soothe your children, and to store your knowledge. But now, you are about to discover that the same force that can bind your people together can also be used to tear others apart. Music is not always a tool of love and unity. In a world of scarce resources and territorial disputes, it can be honed into a brutally effective weapon. It has a dark side, and you are about to hear its voice. You are on a patrol near the edge of your territory when you see them on the opposing ridge, a party from the rival clan, the River People. For a moment, there is only a tense, charged silence. Then a sound begins. It starts as a low, guttural rumble from a single, powerful chest. It is picked up by another, then another, until 30 voices are joined in a deep, menacing chant. The rhythm is slow, heavy, inexorable, like the footfalls of a mammoth. On top of the chant, a percussive sound begins, the rhythmic, hollow thump of spears being struck against hide shields. The sound rolls across the valley, not as a collection of individual shouts, but as a single unified wave of sound. It is a calculated sonic assault, designed for one purpose: to inspire terror. This is the war cry, and its target is not the body, but the mind. It is a psychological weapon meant to demoralize you, to make your heart hammer in your chest, and to plant the seed of doubt that you can possibly stand against such a unified, terrifying force. What you are witnessing is the deep time ancestor of a practice that has survived across millennia. It's a mainstream historical fact that warrior cultures throughout history have used coordinated rhythmic displays to signal aggression and group strength. The most famous modern example is the haka of the Maori people of New Zealand. It is a fierce performance of synchronized stomping, chest thumping, and facial contortions, all set to a powerful chant. It is not a dance, it is a physical manifestation of a tribe's history, power, and unbroken spirit. Now imagine its prehistoric equivalent. The rival warriors on the ridge begin to move as one. They stomp their feet in perfect unison, shaking the very ground. They beat their chests, creating a hollow, booming rhythm. They chant their lineage and their victories. This is not a chaotic mob. It is a single, multi-limbed organism, a display of terrifying coordination and unwavering collective will. This coordination doesn't stop when the display is over. Just as music can organize a work party, it can command an army. As the two forces advance, the steady beat of a drum from the enemy's line becomes the battlefield's conductor. A certain rhythm means advance at a steady pace. A sudden frantic flurry of beats might signal charge. A long, sustained blast from a horn made of aurochs horn could mean flank left. This is music as a command and control system, a way to maneuver warriors as a single cohesive unit in the chaos and terror of combat. It's the same principle as the heave-ho work song, but the stakes are life and death. The psychological effect of this music is a double-edged sword. You have felt the fear it inspires as an enemy, but now you are part of your own war party, preparing for a confrontation. You begin your own chant. The effect on you is transformative. The scientific evidence is clear in your own physiology. As you join your voice with your kin, your brain releases a potent cocktail of neurochemicals. The adrenaline sharpens your senses and deadens your pain receptors. The endorphins create a euphoric high, suppressing your individual fear and making you feel aggressive and powerful. You are no longer a frightened individual. You are an integral part of an avenging whole. And this leads to a fascinating scholarly debate. Military historians and evolutionary anthropologists still argue whether these ritualized displays of aggression primarily evolved as a way to avoid physical conflict, a scare-em-off tactic where the more impressive side wins without a fight, or as a way to psychologically prime warriors for more effective violence. As the tension builds, the river people unveil a truly terrifying sonic weapon. A high-pitched wailing shriek fills the air, a sound that is not quite animal and not quite human, like the sound of a person screaming in their last moments of agony. It's a quirky and horrifying tidbit that ancient peoples developed instruments for exactly this purpose. Archaeologists in Mexico have discovered Aztec ceramic instruments known as death whistles. When you blow into them, they produce a shockingly realistic human scream. The effect on an approaching enemy, hearing 100 of these shrieking at once, would be utterly demoralizing. This is the dark side of your musical ingenuity in its purest form. You have learned that the same vibrations that can create love, soothe a child, and preserve your history can also be tuned to the precise frequency of fear. Music, you now understand, is a neutral power. It is a force of nature that you have learned to harness. And like fire, it can be used to warm the hearth or to burn the world down. The bone-chilling shriek of the death whistle has faded, a stark reminder of music's capacity for terror. We have journeyed through the vast landscape of music's purpose, from the shaman's trance to the mother's lullaby, from the lover's serenade to the warrior's cry. We have explored the deep evolutionary reasons why you are a musical creature, but a fundamental question still hangs in the smoky air of your prehistoric night. What did it all actually sound like? Beyond the rhythms and the raw vocalizations, what were the notes? What was the shape of the first melody? To find the answer, we have to listen for the ghost of a scale that haunts nearly every corner of the musical world. If you were to sit down at a modern piano and play only the black keys, you would, without any training or effort, produce a pleasing, open-sounding melody. It would sound vaguely East Asian, or perhaps like a rustic folk song. What you are playing is the pentatonic scale. The name simply means 5 tones, and it is, as a mainstream historical fact, the most widespread and ancient melodic framework our species has ever invented. It appears, with slight variations, in the traditional folk music of Scotland, China, Sub-Saharan Africa, in Native American chants, and in the blues music of the Mississippi Delta. Its absolute ubiquity is a giant, neon-lit clue that it must be incredibly old, a kind of musical fossil that was carried in the minds of your ancestors as they migrated out of Africa and across the globe. But why this particular set of 5 notes? Why is it so common? The answer lies in the simple physics of sound and a bit of a quirky tidbit about musical harmony. The pentatonic scale is, in essence, the path of least resistance. When you pluck a string or blow across a flute, you don't just produce one single frequency. You produce a fundamental note and a whole series of quieter, higher-pitched notes called overtones or harmonics. The pentatonic scale is built from the strongest and most consonant of these naturally occurring overtones, the ones that are least likely to clash and create a harsh, dissonant sound. It is an acoustically simple and forgiving scale. You can improvise on it for hours, and it's very difficult to hit a wrong note. For a society without formal music theory, where most music making was communal and improvisational, the pentatonic scale was the perfect tool. It's the sound of musical safety, a framework that encourages participation because it's so hard to mess up. It feels natural and right to our ears because, in a way, it is a simplified echo of the natural harmonic series of sound itself. This isn't just a theory based on modern music. We have hard, physical proof from the deep past. The most powerful scientific evidence comes from the very instruments your ancestors left behind. Remember the incredible 40,000-year-old flutes from the Whole Fells Cave, crafted from Vulture-Bone and mammoth ivory? Archaeomusicologists, specialists who study the music of the past, have not just admired these objects. They have recreated them with painstaking precision. Using the exact same materials and Stone Age tools, they have crafted perfect, playable replicas. And when they play them, we can finally hear the notes of the Ice Age. The results are stunning. While there is some variation, the notes produced by these ancient flutes often map cleanly onto a pentatonic scale, or something very close to it. They prove that our ancestors, 40 millennia ago, were not just making random noises. They were creating music within a structured, coherent, and familiar-sounding melodic system. Of course, this discovery immediately opens up a new and fascinating scholarly question. Archaeomusicologists still debate whether the scales found on these flutes represent a deliberate, theoretical musical system or are simply the natural result of placing finger holes in ergonomically convenient locations on the instrument. Did the flute maker think to themselves, I want to create a scale based on these 5 specific tones, demonstrating an abstract, theoretical understanding of music? Or did they simply drill the holes in the places where their fingers naturally fell? And the fact that this produced a pentatonic scale was a happy, ergonomic accident. Was it intentional music theory? Or was it just comfortable hand spacing? The answer is likely somewhere in the middle. A feedback loop between what felt right in the hands and what sounded right to the ears. But this brings us to a final, humbling realization. As incredible as it is to hear the notes of a 40,000-year-old flute, we must acknowledge how little we truly know. The instruments made of bone and ivory are the ones that survived. What of the drums made of hide, the rattles made of gourds, the strings made of gut? Their rhythms, their textures, are gone. More importantly, the most expressive and common instrument of all, the human voice, leaves no fossil. The vocal melodies, the harmonies of the chant, the subtle ornaments and phrasings, the very soul of the performance, all of that is lost to the great silence. Reconstructing the first music from a bone flute is like trying to reconstruct an entire living dinosaur from a single vertebra. We can see the skeleton, we can deduce the structure, but the flesh, the color, the living, breathing creature in all its magnificent detail is gone forever. We are hearing a ghost, a beautiful but incomplete echo of the sound that once filled their world. The ghost of that 5-note scale is now humming in your mind, a melody so ancient and natural it feels like a memory you were born with. This simple, resilient scale, this musical fossil, is more than just a collection of notes. It is a piece of portable culture, a technology of belonging that you can pack up and carry with you, and you are about to carry it to the ends of the earth. You are part of a small band of Homo sapiens, standing on the shores of the Red Sea or at the Sinai Peninsula around 70,000 years ago. You are looking out, away from the familiar plains of your African homeland, towards a new, unknown world. You are at the very beginning of the Great Migration, the single most momentous journey our species has ever undertaken. In your hands, you carry your material toolkit, finely wrought stone points, hide bags, fire-making embers. But in your head, you carry your invisible toolkit, your language, your myths, and your music. You are a musical seed, and you are about to be scattered by the wind. As your small group pushes forward, generation after generation, you are leaving a sonic trail of breadcrumbs across the landscape. You are the Johnny Appleseed of the pentatonic scale. But the music you carry is not a static, unchanging artifact. It is a living, breathing thing, and like any living thing, it adapts to its new environment. As you move into the dense, humid rainforests of Southeast Asia, your world changes. The visual landscape shrinks. You can't see more than 20 feet in any direction. In this green, vertical world, sound becomes the primary sense for understanding your surroundings and maintaining contact with your group. And so, your music adapts. It becomes a tapestry of intricate, interlocking rhythms, a reflection of the layered, dense canopy above you. You become masters of animal mimicry, your songs filled with the calls of exotic birds and the chatter of monkeys, a way of both communicating with each other and showing your deep, encyclopedic knowledge of your new home. Thousands of years later, your descendants have pushed further into the vast, open, wind-swept steppes of Central Asia. The world is the opposite of the rainforest. It is a horizontal world of endless grass and infinite sky. Here, you can see for miles. And again, your music adapts to reflect the landscape. The intricate, close-knit rhythms of the forest give way to long, soaring, open-throated vocal melodies. You sing songs that seem to stretch to the horizon, your voices carrying for incredible distances across the empty plains, a way of staking a sonic claim on the immense space around you. The environment is not just a backdrop for your music. It is an active collaborator, shaping the very structure and feel of your songs. This idea that you can trace the path of human migration by mapping the evolution of music was the life's work of an ambitious and brilliant ethnomusicologist named Alan Lomax. This is a mainstream historical fact. In the mid-20th century, Lomax embarked on a massive project called cantometrics, which was essentially an attempt to do for music what geneticists were doing for human populations. It's the core scientific evidence for this field of study. He and his team gathered thousands of recordings of folk songs from every corner of the globe and systematically analyzed them, coding them for dozens of different characteristics: rhythmic complexity, melodic shape, vocal tone, group dynamics, and so on. They created a vast database, a musical family tree for the entire human species. Lomax's findings were revolutionary. He discovered powerful correlations between a culture's musical style and its social structure. For example, he found that highly stratified, hierarchical societies with kings and chiefs tended to favor solo, virtuosic singing. In contrast, egalitarian hunter-gatherer societies were far more likely to sing in a polyphonic or interlocking style, where every voice is part of a complex, interdependent whole. Their music was a direct reflection of their social ethos. A particularly quirky tidbit from his research was the correlation he found between agricultural methods and vocal style. He noted that cultures that used the plow for agriculture, a task requiring intense physical strain, often featured a tense, strained, high-pitched vocal style in their singing, as if the physical effort of their daily lives had been permanently encoded in their musical voice. But Lomax's work, and the entire story of your musical journey, points to one of the most fundamental questions in our deep history. Did complex music develop once in Africa and then spread and diversify? Or did it emerge independently in multiple locations as a universal human trait? The evidence remains a topic of intense study. One camp argues for a musical Eve. They believe that a set of core musical technologies, the pentatonic scale, call and response singing, complex rhythm, were developed by our ancestors in Africa and then carried out to the rest of the world, slowly changing and branching off like a great linguistic tree. The other camp argues for convergent evolution. They suggest that music is such a fundamental part of the human cognitive toolkit that it simply popped up, again and again, wherever humans went. The pentatonic scale in this view isn't common because it was inherited from a single source, but because it's an acoustically stable solution that different cultures, working independently, kept discovering on their own. As you stand on that new continent, humming a tune you learned from your grandmother, you are the living embodiment of that question. Are you a link in an unbroken chain stretching back to a single African song? Or are you a new beginning, a fresh performance of a song that is simply and profoundly human? The musical seed you carried out of Africa has scattered and taken root in the varied soils of Asia and Europe, its song changing with every new landscape. But the great human journey is not over. Another, even more formidable, migration awaits. You are standing at the edge of the world you know, in the far northeastern corner of Siberia. Before you lies a landscape of unimaginable harshness and scale. Beringia, the great land bridge that connects Asia to the Americas. It is not a narrow causeway, but a vast subcontinent-sized swath of land, a world of punishing winds, freezing temperatures, and a sky that seems to go on forever. You are a mammoth hunter, wrapped in layers of stitched hide and fur, your face weathered by the relentless cold. And in your mind, you carry the music of the old world, the ancient five-note scale, the call and response chants, the memory of the Vulture-Bone flute. You are about to carry this sonic toolkit into an entirely new hemisphere. The journey is brutal. For generations, your people live in this cold, treeless world, a kind of Arctic savanna. Music becomes an intimate, vital thing. There are no great forests to provide resonant logs for drums, so your music becomes smaller, more personal. It's the rhythm of bone clacking against bone, the soft shake of a bladder rattle filled with teeth, and most of all, the human voice. You sing to stay warm, you chant to give yourselves courage, you hum the old melodies to remember a world with trees and sun. Then, after millennia in this icy crucible, the way opens. You follow the great herds south through a corridor in the ice sheets, and you spill out into a new world. A world of staggering richness and diversity. A land that has never before heard a human voice, let alone a human song. Your first steps into this new continent are a sensory explosion, and your music immediately begins to absorb its new surroundings. You enter forests with trees you have never seen. You strip the bark from a massive cedar and stretch a hide over it, and the drum you create has a deep, resonant boom unlike any you have ever heard. You find the wing bones of the giant condor, far larger than the Eurasian vultures, and the flutes you craft from them have a deeper, more commanding voice. Down in the sweltering riverlands of the south, you discover that a turtle's shell, when dried and filled with pebbles, makes a sharp, clattering rattle of incredible power and precision. The very soundscape of your music begins to change its accent, its timbre and texture shaped by the new materials, the new animals, and the new acoustics of this new world. Over thousands of years, your descendants spread with astonishing speed, populating 2 entire continents from the Arctic ice to the tip of Tierra del Fuego. Thousands of distinct cultures arise, speaking thousands of different languages. And yet, for all this diversity, a set of common musical threads, a kind of Pan-American grammar, seems to persist. This is a mainstream historical fact of ethnomusicology. Indigenous music across both North and South America shares a remarkable number of core characteristics. The first is the overwhelming prominence of percussion and flutes. The drum, the rattle, and the flute are the holy trinity of the American soundscape, far outweighing the use of stringed instruments, which were almost entirely absent before the arrival of Europeans. The second is the central importance of vocables. These are syllables like hey-ya, na-ho, or wee-yo, which have no direct translatable meaning but are filled with profound emotional and spiritual significance. They are pure sound, pure music, a form of singing that is not bound by the grammar of spoken language. Anthropologists debate whether these shared musical traits represent a single, ancient, Paleo-Indian musical grammar that was carried across the land bridge, or are the result of thousands of years of cultural exchange and convergent development across the 2 continents. As a perfect, haunting example of this process of inheritance and innovation, we can look to the American Southwest. Here, in the cliff dwellings and great houses of the ancestral Puebloan people, sometimes known as the Anasazi, a unique musical tradition blossomed in isolation for over 1,000 years. This is a truly quirky and beautiful tidbit of American prehistory. Archaeologists have found the flutes they made, and they are unlike those of the Old World. They are typically made of cedar, are blown from the end like a recorder rather than across the top, and they lack the V-shaped notch of their European cousins. The result is a sound that is breathy, intimate, and deeply haunting. Hearing the sound of a recreated Anasazi flute is like hearing the wind of the high desert given a human voice. These instruments, found broken and silent in abandoned pueblos, are the hard scientific evidence of a musical tradition that was both utterly unique to this time and place, and yet part of the great, global human story of the flute. It is a testament to the fact that no matter where you went, no matter how new the world, you never stopped finding new ways to make it sing. You have carried your music across the ice and into the vast, untouched continents of the Americas, your song adapting to the new mountains, deserts, and forests. But another, even more ancient human journey had already taken place on the other side of the world. Let's rewind the clock. You are back in Southeast Asia, more than 65,000 years ago. Before you lies not a bridge of ice, but a daunting expanse of open water. Even with sea levels lower than they are today, the journey to the great southern continent of Sahul, the combined landmass of ancient Australia and New Guinea, is a perilous one, requiring a series of daring sea crossings on simple rafts. You are one of these first coastal explorers, the pioneers who undertook one of humanity's earliest and greatest maritime migrations. And when you finally make landfall on that strange, sunburnt continent, you step into a world that has been evolving in isolation for 40 million years. A world of giant kangaroos, flightless birds, and alien forests. Here, you will become the most enduring culture on the entire planet. This is a mainstream historical fact, supported by overwhelming genetic and archaeological scientific evidence. At sites like Majid Bebe in Arnhem Land, archaeologists have found human artifacts securely dated to 65,000 years ago. This means that your descendants, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, represent the oldest continuous living culture on Earth. For 65 millennia, they have lived on this continent, and for that entire time, they have been singing its story. The musical system they developed is one of the most complex, profound, and beautiful information storage systems ever invented. It is the music of the Dreamtime, and it is written not on paper, but onto the very fabric of the continent itself. This is the world of the song lines. Imagine your memory palace from before, the song that helped you remember the names of your ancestors. Now, imagine that palace is the size of Australia. The song lines, or dreaming tracks, are both the map and the library of your people. In the Dreamtime, the creation era, the great ancestral beings, the rainbow serpent, the kangaroo men, the honey ant sisters, traveled across the barren land, and as they moved, they sang the world into existence. They sang the rivers, the mountains, the rocks, and the trees. Every landmark in the physical world is a fossilized echo of a note in their creation song, and your sacred duty is to keep that song alive. You learn the song lines that pass through your clan's territory. You learn the verses, the melodies, and the dances associated with each specific landmark. To sing the song is to walk the path of the ancestor. The song is the map. The lyrics give you the route, the landmarks, the location of sacred sites, and crucially, the whereabouts of life-sustaining waterholes. It is a literal, sung GPS, a tool for navigating the vast and often featureless expanse of the Australian outback. But it is so much more than that. The song line is your history book, your legal code, and your spiritual text all in one. The lyrics tell you the story of how that rock formation came to be. They remind you of the laws that the ancestors laid down at that very spot. They reinforce the intricate web of kinship, spelling out your obligations to your family and your land. Anthropologists and linguists debate the extent to which the song lines are literal maps for navigation versus metaphorical maps of kinship and spiritual law, but for you, the distinction is meaningless. The physical and the spiritual are one and the same. To walk the land without the song is to be hopelessly, spiritually lost. At the heart of this soundscape is an instrument that has become an iconic, global symbol of ancient Australia, the didgeridoo. Now, it's important to note that the didgeridoo itself is probably not 60,000 years old. The oldest rock art depictions of it are closer to 1,500 years old. But it represents an approach to sound that feels timeless. It is a long, hollow tube of wood, often a eucalyptus branch hollowed out by termites. It is not played like a flute by blowing across a hole, but like a trumpet by buzzing your lips into one end. The quirky and incredibly skillful tidbit here is the use of circular breathing. The player breathes in through their nose while simultaneously pushing air out from their cheeks into the instrument, allowing them to produce a continuous, unbroken sound, a resonant drone that can be held for minutes on end. This drone is the sonic earth, a representation of the constant, humming vibration of the land itself. Over this drone, the player uses their voice to create complex, chattering rhythms and to mimic the calls of animals like the dingo or the kookaburra. What is most profound about all of this is that it is not a reconstruction. This is not a story we are piecing together from a few broken bones and silent artifacts. It is a living, breathing tradition. The elders are still teaching the young people the song lines today. The songs are still being sung, the dances are still being performed, and the land is still being honored. The Aboriginal cultures of Australia provide our single most important and direct window into the deep past. They are living proof of how music can function in a society not as mere entertainment, but as its very operating system, its memory, its law, its map, and its soul. It is the ultimate testament to the power of a song to hold a world together. You have walked the song lines of Australia, a living library of music written onto a continent. Now, let's travel back across the globe and back in time, returning to the world of your European ancestors. You are a Cro-Magnon, a hunter and artist of Ice Age Europe, 20,000 years ago. You are the direct cultural heir of the people who first coaxed a melody from a vulture's bone and who painted the thundering herds of bison and aurochs onto the sacred walls of the cave cathedrals. Your world is one of immense, profound beauty and brutal, unforgiving cold. Your music is the music of the great hunt, the sound of the mammoth, the song of the reindeer spirit. It is a tradition thousands of years old, a sonic tapestry as rich and complex as the painted figures that flicker in your firelight. But this world, which has seemed so eternal, so frozen in its icy majesty, is beginning to melt. The change is slow at first, almost imperceptible. The winters seem a little less severe each year. The great glaciers that have loomed like mountain ranges on the northern horizon begin to retreat, their edges weeping water, their immense weight lifting from the land. The endless frozen steppe, the great mammoth prairie that has been your people's larder for 100 generations, begins to transform. Birch and pine forests start to creep north, their dense thickets breaking up the vast open grasslands. And as the landscape changes, the great beasts begin to vanish. The mammoths, the woolly rhinos, the giant cave bears. Their numbers dwindle. The hunts become harder, the migrations more unpredictable. Your central myth, the very core of your culture, is disappearing before your eyes. How does your music respond to such a profound loss? The triumphant songs of the great mammoth hunt do not simply disappear. They transform. They become elegies, filled with a deep, nostalgic longing for a lost golden age. You sing the old stories, but now your voice is tinged with sorrow. The songs become a way of remembering, of holding on to the memory of the great beasts and the heroes who hunted them. It is a music of remembrance, a sonic monument to a world that is fading away. Archaeologists and climate historians still debate the exact timeline and causes of this megafaunal extinction, questioning the balance of blame between the changing climate and the effectiveness of your own hunting technologies. But for you, the reason doesn't matter. What matters is the silence on the plains where the giants once roamed. This changing world pushes your descendants towards a revolutionary new way of life. In the fertile crescent of the Near East, a radical idea is taking hold. Why chase the wild grains when you can plant and harvest them yourself? Why hunt the wild goat when you can capture and breed it? This is the Neolithic revolution, the shift to agriculture. And it is a mainstream historical fact that it will change the human story more profoundly than any event since the taming of fire. Your nomadic life, a life of constant movement following the herds and the seasons, comes to an end. You build permanent villages with sturdy houses of mud brick and stone. And as your society becomes settled, your music settles down with it. The rhythm of your life is no longer the rhythm of the hunt. It is the rhythm of the agricultural calendar. Your music becomes tied to this new cycle. You create songs for the spring planting, asking the earth for its fertility. You sing work songs to coordinate the communal back-breaking labor of the harvest, your voices rising and falling with the swing of the first primitive sickles. You create great, joyous festivals of music and dance to celebrate the gathering of the grain, a celebration of having survived another year. The scientific evidence for this new life is everywhere in the ground beneath your feet. The discarded flint sickle blades, the great ceramic pots for storing grain, and even new kinds of instruments, like pottery drums, that are too heavy and fragile to have been practical for a nomadic people. Your music is no longer about the wild, unpredictable spirit of the mammoth. It's about the cyclical, predictable life of the seed. And with this new, settled life of surplus and specialization comes the dawn of new musical technologies. The bone flute and the hide drum are still with you, but in the burgeoning towns of Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean, the first stringed instruments begin to appear. The hunter's bow, which you once plucked for a quiet, intimate sound, is now being deliberately engineered for music. Someone has the brilliant idea of attaching a resonator, like a tortoise shell or a wooden box, to the bow, amplifying its sound for all to hear. They add a second string, then a third, tuning them to different notes. The lyre and the harp are born. This is a quirky tidbit of musical history. The shell of a tortoise, a creature's humble home, became the resonant body for some of the first concert instruments. Its patterned shell, a thing of both natural and musical beauty. These new instruments are complex, difficult to make, and difficult to play. They require specialists, professional musicians who are supported by the community's agricultural surplus. The old egalitarian drum circle is giving way to the musician on the stage. The slow, inexorable transition from the sound of the Stone Age to the music of the ancient world has begun. Your journey has been a vast one, from the savanna of Africa, across the ice of Beringia, to the song-soaked landscape of Australia. You have seen your music change its shape and its voice to fit every corner of the planet. It has become 1,000 different musical dialects, 1,000 distinct traditions. And yet, underneath it all, the same fundamental impulse seems to drive it. The beat, the melody, the song. They are everywhere you have gone. This leads to the great, overarching question that hangs over our entire story. After this long journey, can we finally say that music is a universal language? On the one hand, the answer seems to be a resounding yes. There appear to be certain fundamental acoustic properties that are understood by human brains everywhere, regardless of cultural context. It's a mainstream historical fact, observed by travelers and documented by ethnomusicologists for centuries, that music's ability to convey basic emotional states like happiness, sadness, and anger is remarkably consistent across cultures. A song with a fast tempo, a high pitch, and a sharp, bouncy rhythm will almost universally be interpreted as happy, energetic, or exciting. A song with a slow tempo, a low pitch, and a smooth, flowing melodic line will almost always be perceived as calm or sad. This isn't magic. It's likely rooted in our shared biology. These acoustic cues mimic the natural sounds of our own bodies and the world around us. When you are excited or frightened, your heart beats faster. A fast tempo. When you are calm or asleep, your heart beats slower. A slow tempo. A large, threatening animal, like a lion or a bear, produces a low, rumbling growl. A small, non-threatening animal, like a songbird, produces a high, chirping call. Your brain, hardwired for survival, has been learning these acoustic rules for millions of years. Music simply taps into this ancient, pre-existing library of sonic associations. But the moment we move beyond these basic, almost physiological responses, the case for a universal language begins to crumble. The specific meaning of music, its emotional nuance and cultural significance, is not innate. It is learned. It is a language you learn to speak and understand by growing up within a particular culture. A perfect and quirky tidbit that illustrates this is the Western association of the minor key with sadness. To a listener raised on classical music or modern pop, a melody played in a minor key sounds inherently melancholy, a little bit tragic. Yet in many other cultures, the exact same set of notes is the foundation for lively, wildly celebratory dance music, as in many Jewish klezmer or Balkan folk traditions. For them, that scale doesn't mean sad, it means let's dance. The emotional content isn't in the notes themselves, it's in the cultural baggage we have been taught to attach to them. The definitive scientific evidence for this duality comes from a series of brilliant cross-cultural studies. In one famous experiment, a team of researchers led by Thomas Fritz traveled to a remote region of Cameroon to work with the Maffa people, a tribe who had had virtually no exposure to Western culture or its music. They played them short pieces of Western piano music intended to sound happy, sad, or scary. The Maffa were then asked to point to illustrations of faces showing these emotions. The results were fascinating. The Maffa identified the correct emotions at a rate significantly better than chance. They could pick up on the basic, universal cues. Fast meant happy, slow meant sad. However, when the emotional palette became more complex, or when the music relied on culturally specific harmonic conventions, the understanding broke down. They could hear the basic effect, but they missed the culturally coded emotion. This leads us to the heart of a subtle but crucial debate. Cognitive scientists and ethnomusicologists still debate whether our shared ability to recognize basic emotion in music is a product of innate, hardwired acoustic cues or the result of universal human experiences that get mapped onto sound. Is it hardwiring, or is it just that the experience of grief, for instance, tends to make all humans move and speak slowly, a behavior we then project onto our music? Whatever the answer, the conclusion seems clear. Music is not a universal language. A language in the strict sense, has a specific vocabulary and a shared grammar that allows for the transmission of precise, factual propositions. "The mammoth is by the river" is a statement that can be translated. The feeling you get from a song cannot. Music is something both less specific and arguably more powerful. It is a universal behavior. It is a universal human impulse. It is a form of communication that transmits not facts, but feelings. We all speak music, but we do so in 1,000 different, beautiful, and mutually unintelligible tongues. You have traveled the world and the timeline of human history, listening for the echoes of the first song. We have pieced together the story using fossil bones, stone tools, and ancient art. But now we have a tool that allows us to look directly into the engine room of it all, the human brain. Let's use the lens of modern neuroscience to look back at your ancestor, sitting by that fire 40,000 years ago, and understand what was truly happening inside their skull as the sound of the flute and the drum filled the air. We are going to put the prehistoric mind into a modern MRI machine. As the music begins, the first and most powerful thing we would see is a surge of activity in the very core of your ancestor's brain, in a region called the nucleus accumbens. This is the heart of the brain's reward system. It's the same pleasure center that lights up when you eat a piece of ripe, sweet fruit after a long hunger, or when you feel the warmth of a fire on a freezing night, or during the intimacy of mating. As your ancestor listens to a particularly pleasing part of the song, a soaring flute melody, a perfectly resolved rhythm, their brain releases a small, potent shot of the neurotransmitter dopamine. This is the mainstream historical fact, and the fundamental reason why music, an abstract pattern of vibrations, feels so incredibly good. It is tapping directly into the most ancient neural circuitry you have for pleasure and reward. It is, from your brain's perspective, as good and as necessary as food or safety. This leads to a profound scholarly debate. Neuroscientists still debate whether this dopamine reward system for music is a spandrel, a happy accident, and a byproduct of systems that evolved for more critical survival needs like food and sex, or if it is a specific adaptation, a reward system deliberately honed by evolution to promote the social cohesion that music creates. Is music just clever neurological hacking? Or was the pleasure itself the point, the evolutionary carrot that kept you singing together? As we zoom out, we see another, perhaps more surprising region of the brain firing in perfect time with the beat. It is the cerebellum, the cauliflower-shaped structure at the very back of your skull. For a long time, we thought the cerebellum's job was purely for coordinating physical movement, balance, posture, and fine motor control. But we now know it is also a master of time. This is a fascinating and quirky tidbit of modern neuroscience. Your cerebellum is crucial for processing rhythm and predicting the beat. As your ancestor listens to the steady thump-thump of the drum, their cerebellum is locking onto the pattern, anticipating the next beat before it even happens. The pleasure you feel when a beat drops perfectly is the feeling of your cerebellum's prediction being satisfied. This deep, primal connection between sound and the motor control centers of the brain is the scientific evidence for why you can't help but tap your foot. Your brain, on a fundamental level, doesn't just want to hear the rhythm. It wants to be the rhythm. Now, the shaman begins to sing an old, familiar song, a melody that your ancestor has known since childhood. A different network of brain regions begins to glow. This is the default mode network, with its central hub in the medial prefrontal cortex. This network is what's active when your mind is wandering, when you are daydreaming, remembering your past, or thinking about your future. It is, in many ways, the neurological seat of yourself. As the familiar, nostalgic melody plays, it is activating this network, dredging up a flood of autobiographical memories. Your ancestor isn't just hearing a song, they are reliving the first time they heard it, the people who were there, the smell of the fire, the feeling of safety in the clan. The music has become a time machine, a key that unlocks the deepest, most emotionally charged archives of their personal history. In this single moment, listening to music around a fire, your ancestor's brain is a symphony of activity. The ancient reward system is flooding them with pleasure. The motor system is locked onto the beat, making their body a part of the instrument. The high-level cognitive networks are weaving the sound into the fabric of their own life story. And here is the most profound insight of all. The brain we see lighting up in that imaginary scanner is, in all its essential functions, identical to yours. The neural fireworks that exploded in your ancestor's head when they heard that bone flute are the very same fireworks that ignite in yours when you hear a song you love. The hardware has not changed. The needs it fulfills, for pleasure, for rhythm, for belonging, for memory, are the same. You are feeling what they felt. A direct, unbroken neurochemical connection across 400 centuries of human nights. You are standing in the world's largest and most silent museum. Its collection spans not centuries, but millennia. Its artifacts are the bone flutes, the ringing stones, and the notched rasps we have painstakingly unearthed from the deep frozen soil of the past. We have held them up to the light, analyzed their markings, and coaxed their ghost notes from them. We have used the incredible power of modern science to map the ancient brain and listen for the echoes of its first musical thoughts. We have traveled the globe, tracing the sonic footprints of our ancestors as they sang their way into new worlds. After this immense journey, it is easy to feel that we have learned so much. But now, we must confront the most profound and humbling truth of all. What we have found, as precious and miraculous as it is, represents only a single, shattered chord from a symphony that lasted for 200,000 years. The rest is silence, a great, overwhelming, and eternal silence. The primary reason for this immense loss is the very nature of music itself and the materials from which it was made. Music is the most ephemeral of all the arts. A painting can last for millennia on a cave wall. A stone tool can survive for 1,000,000 years. But a song? A song is nothing more than a temporary patterned disturbance in the air. It exists for a fleeting moment and then vanishes utterly, leaving no trace of its passing. Its instruments were, for the most part, just as transient. Think of the things you have created on this journey. The drum that thundered with the voice of the mammoth hunt was made of a wooden frame and a stretched animal hide. In any climate outside of a frozen tundra or a perfectly dry desert, it would rot and turn back into soil in a few short seasons. The rattles that kept the rhythm were made from dried gourds, woven reeds, or turtle shells, all organic, all destined to decay. Remember the music bow, the grandfather of all stringed instruments? A stick and a piece of gut. It would not have survived a single decade, let alone 50,000 years. And then there is the most important instrument of all, your own voice. The repository of the epics, the singer of the lullabies, the chanter of the sacred rites. It was the most common, the most versatile, and the most expressive musical tool you possessed. And it was made of flesh, breath, and memory. 3 things that leave no fossil. This is the great problem of materials, the fundamental challenge of musical archaeology. Your world was likely filled with the sound of drums, shakers, and strings, but that entire percussive and melodic orchestra has almost completely vanished. What we are left with is a collection of survivors, a small, biased sample of the past that made it through what archaeologists call the taphonomic filter. Taphonomy is the study of how things decay and become part of the fossil record, and it is a brutal filter. It is a mainstream historical fact that organic materials almost never survive, while inorganic materials like stone, and to a lesser extent bone and ivory, last much longer. This means that our picture of your musical world is permanently and dramatically skewed. It overrepresents the rare and durable, and almost completely erases the common and perishable. It's a quirky tidbit of archaeological thinking. We call this the preservation bias. It's as if the entire musical history of the 20th century were to be reconstructed 1,000,000 years from now, based only on a handful of surviving ceramic guitar slides and a few brass trumpet mouthpieces, with all the wooden guitars, vinyl records, and magnetic tapes having turned to dust. You would know music existed, but you would have a bizarrely warped idea of what it sounded like. The scientific evidence for this bias is in the numbers. We have found dozens of exquisitely crafted bone and ivory flutes from the Upper Paleolithic in Europe, but we have found 0 confirmed drums. Does this mean your ancestors were a culture of virtuoso flutists who disliked percussion? It's incredibly unlikely. Ethnographic studies of all modern hunter-gatherer societies show that drums and rattles are almost universally more common and more central to ritual life than melodic instruments like flutes. The evidence doesn't reflect the ancient reality. It reflects the modern reality of what materials happen to survive a 40,000-year burial. This is why archaeologists still debate whether some of the most common artifacts we find, like bones with mysterious grooves or notches, are even instruments at all. Are they rhythmic rasps, or are they just tools for straightening arrow shafts? The silence of the record is so complete that it forces us to guess at the soundtrack. And so, we must end this part of our journey with a moment of humility. Every story we have told, while rooted in the best evidence we have, has been an act of educated, evidence-based imagination. We have taken the few surviving notes and tried to reconstruct the symphony. We have taken a single bone and tried to rebuild a living, breathing culture around it. The sheer scale of what is lost is almost too vast to comprehend. Every lullaby that ever soothed a child to sleep, every work song that ever lightened a load, every love song that was ever whispered, every sacred chant that ever called a god, billions of unique, unrecorded performances, an entire ocean of human music, has evaporated without a trace. We are standing on the shore of that silent ocean, and the few beautiful shells we have found are all we have to remember it by. The great silence of the past is a humbling and vast ocean, and the few artifacts we have are its beautiful, lonely shells. It's easy, standing on that shore, to feel disconnected from that lost world, to see your ancestors as distant, alien figures in a story that is over. But now, it's time to stop looking back. It's time to look within. Let's bring this journey home, to this very moment. The long day is over. You are in your room. The lights are low. You reach for your headphones, or you tell your smart speaker to play a song. You close your eyes, and as the first notes wash over you, the 200,000-year-old thread of human music pulls taut. You are about to prove that the ancient world is not lost. You have been carrying it inside you all along. Look at the music that fills your modern life. On the surface, it seems a universe away from the sound of a bone flute in an Ice Age cave. It is a world of digital production, of global superstars, of complex harmonies and synthesized beats. But if you scratch the surface, if you look at the reason you are listening, you will find that almost nothing has changed. The ancient purposes of music are still your purposes, just dressed up in modern clothes. Think about the last wedding you attended. When the bride walked down the aisle, a specific piece of music played. When the couple had their first dance, a special song was chosen. This is ritual. It's the shaman's drum, repurposed for a modern rite of passage, using sound to mark a moment as sacred and separate from ordinary time. When you stand in a stadium with 50,000 other people singing the national anthem before a game, you are doing the exact same thing your ancestors did with a pre-hunt chant, using a unified song to create a powerful, temporary superorganism, a tribe. You go to a concert or a music festival. You stand in a crowd of thousands, all moving to the same beat, all singing the same lyrics. The feeling of euphoria, of dissolving into a collective, of feeling a profound bond with the strangers around you. That is the endorphin rush of the clan around the fire. You are using music as social glue, the grooming at a distance that lets you feel connected in a world of millions. And what about courtship? You spend hours carefully crafting the perfect playlist to share with someone you're attracted to, a sequence of songs that says, "This is who I am. This is how I feel." It is the bowerbird decorating his nest with blue flowers. It is the hunter serenading his potential mate across the fire. It is the peacock's tale translated into a Spotify link. You go to the gym and put on a high-energy playlist. That is the work song, the rhythmic chant of the hunters pulling the mammoth back to camp, repurposed to help you push through one more set. And if you have a child, you will, without any instruction, find yourself humming a soft, simple melody to soothe them to sleep. That is the lullaby, an unbroken chain of comfort stretching back into the mists of time. This is the mainstream historical fact. The functional contexts of music have remained remarkably stable throughout our species' history. The technology changes, but the needs do not. The reason these ancient impulses still hold such sway over you is because you are running them on the exact same hardware. The scientific evidence from neuroscience is the final definitive proof. When you get goosebumps during a powerful musical crescendo, the network of brain regions that lights up, the auditory cortex, the amygdala for emotion, and the nucleus accumbens for pleasure, is identical to the one that lit up in your Cro-Magnon ancestor. The dopamine that floods your brain, making that moment feel so intensely good, is the same molecule that rewarded them for their own musical discoveries. A quirky tidbit of modern life is that while the music is different, we even unconsciously try to recreate the ancient listening environments. Music producers spend fortunes on digital reverb effects to make a vocal sound like it was recorded in a huge hall or a vast echoing cave, artificially adding the resonant acoustics your ancestors sought out for their most sacred rituals. We are still wrestling with the same beautiful mysteries. Music psychologists still debate whether the profound pleasure we derive from listening to sad music is a form of empathetic catharsis, a way to safely process negative emotions, or a more complex cognitive trick where the brain enjoys the rich emotional simulation without any of the real-world negative consequences? Why does a song that makes you cry also feel so good? We don't have the final answer, and perhaps our ancestors, weeping to a mournful flute solo, didn't either. They just knew that it worked. They knew that this strange, invisible force could hold their world together. And that is the thread that connects you. The love of music is not an invention of civilization. It is not a feature of any one culture. It is a piece of your biological inheritance, a fundamental part of the human blueprint. Every beat you have ever danced to has an echo of a foot stomping on the hard-packed earth. Every melody that has ever moved you has a ghost of a voice humming by the fire. You are the current endpoint of an unbroken 200 millennium-long performance. The song was never lost. It just changed, and you are its newest verse. And so our long journey comes to a close. We have been listening for an echo in the deepest corridors of time, trying to catch the phantom of the first song. We began in a world of profound and particular silence, walking with an ancestor whose mind was a map of the immediate, a world without symbol or art. We felt the slow, grinding changes in the very architecture of their body, the elegant repurposing of jawbones into the delicate levers of the ear, the dangerous, world-changing descent of the larynx in the throat. We were there for the revelation of rhythm, the discovery that the beat of your own heart and the cadence of your own 2 feet could be brought out into the world through the clap of a hand and the stomp of a foot. We sat in the flint knapper's workshop, hearing the accidental music of survival, the percussive symphony of a world being built one stone flake at a time. We witnessed the great leap of imagination, the moment you realized that a hollow log could boom with a voice far larger than your own, that a vulture's bone could be coaxed to sing with the breath of a ghost. You filled your world with sound, with the dry chatter of a jawbone scraper, the swishing hiss of a gourd rattle, and the unearthly, soul-shaking moan of the Bullroarer. And through it all, you have been at the center of the great debates. Was the Divjababe bone a flute or a hyena's chew toy? Did language emerge from the melodic soup of a musi-language, or was it the other way around? The scientific evidence from fMRI scans showing the profound overlap in how our brains process musical and linguistic syntax confirms this deep entanglement, but cannot by itself answer the question of which came first. And this points to the core, unshakable mystery that will always remain at the heart of our story. We can piece together the how and theorize about the why. We can recreate the notes of that Hohlfeld's flute. And we know that the 5-note scale it plays is a kind of musical lingua franca for our species. We know that music was a tool for bonding the clan, for entering the spirit world, for wooing a mate, and for remembering the dead. But we can never truly know what it felt like. What was the subjective experience, the internal awe, of that ancestor who heard a melody for the very first time? A sound that was not the roar of a predator or the rumble of thunder, but an intentional pattern of pure, abstract beauty. What did it feel like to be the one to create it? That is a silence our science can never penetrate. It is a feeling lost to time, a private, internal experience that happened in a mind so very different from our own, and yet so fundamentally the same. The enduring power of music, its refusal to be forgotten, is a testament to its mnemonic strength. The modern phenomenon of an earworm, a quirky tidbit where a catchy tune gets stuck in your head and plays on a loop, is not a bug in our cognitive software. It is a feature. It is a ghost of the time when getting a song stuck in your head was the most reliable way to keep your culture alive. That unbroken chain of memory, of emotion, of rhythm, leads directly to you. Now, in the quiet of your room, the music you choose to fill your own silence with, whatever its genre, is the current living endpoint of this 200,000-year-long story. Philosophers and cognitive scientists still debate whether music is a fundamental human need, like food and shelter, or a profound and beautiful luxury. But as you listen, feeling the beat in your bones and the melody in your soul, the answer feels obvious. It is the sound of what it is to be human, a thread of vibration that has connected every one of us, from the first to the last. Every beat has an echo of that first footfall. Every melody has a ghost of that first voice. The song has never ended. And now, the journey is over. The great fire has burned down to soft, glowing embers. The story has been told. The last notes of the bone flute have faded, leaving only the gentle whisper of the night wind and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Let the questions and the mysteries of deep time drift away now, like smoke rising into a vast and starry sky. There are no more mammoths to hunt, no more caves to explore. There is only the here and the now, the simple comfort of your own quiet space, the feeling of rest at the end of a long, long day. Allow the silence that follows the story to be its own kind of music, a gentle and calming chord that settles over you like a soft blanket. Let your thoughts become slow and quiet, drifting and dreamlike, as you begin to ease into the deep and peaceful sleep that awaits you.